December meeting of the Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners please come to order. Let's begin our meeting with a moment of silent meditation. Pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we adopt the agenda, I'd like to make a couple of modifications to the agenda. We'd like to move from the consent agenda, move item 7 to new business so we can have some individual discussion and action on that. And also item 8 on the consent agenda, which is the town hazard mitigation plan, move that to new business so we can have some individual discussion on that.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, there being none, so ordered. Have lots of celebrations this morning, so Alan, I'll ask you to kick this off with a new employee.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Chris Midcap. Chris is the newest half of the IT department. He was born in Ohio and moved to Hickory, North Carolina when he was 2 years old. He's been interested in computers since he was 5 and built his first computer when he was 14. Before he came to work with us, he worked with Watauga County as a PC technician for 3 years, and he worked for Grandfather Home for Children as a network administrator in Banner Elk, North Carolina for 2 years. And when Chris is away from work, he loves playing pinball. Matter of fact, he played in a pinball tournament last night and came in second. He recently purchased his own machine and so he can work on his pinball machine and play on it at home. And I don't think his girlfriend was very happy about that, but I think he was. He's off to a great start with the town. We're really happy to have him, and hope he'll be with us for many years to come. So,
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Welcome again. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have another new employee, Tom.
Good morning, Mayor, Board. I'd like to introduce to you Gage William McDonald. He's our newest police officer. Gage is 23 years old, or 23 years young, as I like to say. He graduated from Antioch High School in 2010. He's married to Rebecca and has a 2-year-old son, Abel Wilson McDonald. Gage graduated this past year in 2014 from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy, and he received the honor graduate for the highest academic scores. Prior to his employment with the town of Nags Head, he worked for Dare County Building and Grounds as an electrician's helper, at which time he decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. We're happy to have him on board, and I would like to add that Gage and his wife Rebecca just learned that they're having their second child.
Congratulations. Good.
Good to have you on board.
Thank you, sir.
Look forward to a long career.
Thank you.
Don't let the public works guy know you can do electrical work.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to have you. Congratulations.
Welcome to the force. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Kevin, got 5-year firefighter.
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Indisputably, this is the safest room in Nags Head today, I would say.
I was just commenting on that before we started.
That's right. It's my pleasure today to present firefighter EMT Charles Thuman for his 5-year recognition with the town. Charles has been a full-time firefighter EMT since 2009, and he lives in Nags Head with someone we all know, his wife Roberta. They have 2 dogs, Alba and Kiska, and they love getting out and spending time with them as well. Over the past 5 years, he's worked hard to become a level 2 fire inspector and a certified driver operator. And aside from his regular duties around the station and on calls, Charles has been most helpful in completing construction projects around the station. His skills and abilities are valuable and appreciated, and this versatility saves the town budget for other purposes. Charles is most adept at providing emergency services. He always maintains this calm demeanor that you see here, works well under extreme pressure, and ensures that all tasks are handled efficiently and as compassionately as possible. I was reminded just before the meeting that he led the initial fire attack in the January 2013 Body Island Court fire in the midst of exploding LP tanks and very adverse conditions. So his courage and bravery is not in question. Very good. In his free time, Charles enjoys spending time with Roberta and anything else related to boats. He maintains a U.S. Coast Guard 50-ton master license and has a long history as a participant in the World 1000 Cat Race. His skills and knowledge are a distinct asset to the organization, and I believe Charles has a bright future with the town of Nags Head.
Thank you so much for your service. Look forward to a long career.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. You haven't given up carpenter, have you?
Very much. Go ahead.
Thanks for your great service. Thanks, Charles.
Okay, Cliff?
My pleasure to stand with you today beside Alan Massey to recognize him on his 15 years of service with the town of Nags Head, which began on November 10th, 1999. Alan's been trying to teach what is, to me, a foreign language ever since I got here, and he had jet black hair, and jet black hair before I came. If you would take a moment and think about your most frustrating experience with your computer or your cell phone and how stressed out you were. Now, times that by 1,000, and that's what he deals with until Chris came, and now that's what Chris gets to deal with. If that's all he had to worry about, then I think his hair would be back to jet black. I went and found his resume. When he started with the town, he was MIS assistant, and at the time he lived in Wanchese until I guess Ralph ran him out. But one of the things on this will speak to the foreign language. He back in '99 was upgrading physical layer of computer network from daisy chain coaxial system to category 5 10-base T system with hub. Those were the good old days, I guess. He's the man that's behind the scene. He is getting the thingamajiggers to speak to the whatchamacallits and the whoosy-whatsies. For a while, I thought Alan lived at Town Hall because he's always in stealth mode because he's always at Town Hall. I actually followed him home just to make sure that he did have a house because he's always there. He's regardless of what hour of the night it is, what day of the week it is, he's making sure that the systems are running, that things are running smoothly as they should. I'm very appreciative for Alan's dedication. He is extremely dedicated to all of us and to the town and to the job that he does, takes it very seriously. He has to try and stay ahead so he doesn't get behind because in his world things evolve so quickly and things become obsolete almost when he finds out about them. So he is trying to stay a step ahead. Alan has children, but they are of the four-legged variety and four-wheeled variety. He takes the stress out by racing Miatas. I just hope Alan will be here for many more years, and maybe I'll learn the language eventually, but Alan Massey.
And for your help that you've given me in the other trouble.
You'll be pretty lost without you, don't go anywhere.
And this is a man who has doubled the time that Alan has with 30 years experience. You should stand in front because behind every good woman is a good man. And actually, it'd probably be fitting if not only if Charlotte, his wife, were here, we also need to recognize his work wives, Paulette and Jackie. Jackie used to be able to do the job alone, but she begged for help, and Paulette came to the rescue to try and keep things straight. Another testimony to Chief Sorek and his years of service is the men that are standing in Class A uniform to be here to recognize and to be a part of the 30-year recognition of their fire chief. I've joked with the chief and said the only person that could do this and do a fitting job is him. I joked and said, you do such a great job, you should do all of these. But if he wrote this, I would be standing here again using words that I don't typically use, and I'd be fumbling over his command of the English language. I went back and looked in his file, and paper was yellow 30 years ago. I'm not sure if the paper was yellow or if it's just age. But he actually came to work for the town in water operations in 1984 and then transferred over to the fire department in 1986. And as Doug O'Malley would say, he learned how to put the wet stuff on the hot stuff. And he's been doing an excellent job ever since. I am extremely fortunate to have Chief Sorek in the position that he's in. We all are extremely fortunate. He understands the meaning of leadership. He understands the meaning of integrity. He understands and is aware of the history of the many people that have come before him to build a fire department. And he carries that tradition on, and he wants to continue to protect that and protect it for the people that are serving under his leadership. He quickly moved up. I was looking to see when he was a captain, but I think he skipped captain, went straight to straight to deputy chief. He gives me great assurance knowing that during an event, a storm or a hurricane, that he's in command. He's very calm. He can handle things. I'm very fortunate that he's here. Charlotte, I appreciate all that you've had to endure and put up with, and the many nights of hearing the radio go off and coming and going. And I know it's been a difficult and tough, trying time, as it is for all firefighters and police officers, spouses. So we thank you for giving them to us for the greater part of those 30 years. I don't think the chief measures accomplishments in years of service. I think he does, and again, in the people that he leads. I think he had to be reminded that it was his 30 years, and I'll remind you what you said to me was 30 years with no end in sight. So I hope that remains true. Thank you for all that you do for us, all you do for this community, and I look forward to many more years. Thank you, sir.
Present this. I think half of this is yours. On November 6, 1984, Kevin became employed with the town of Nags Head. The certificate is awarded to recognize the loyal and dedicated service that Kevin has provided to the town over the past 30 years. His interest in doing a good job during this tenure in the fire and rescue department has made a positive and valuable effect on the well-being of the town and its citizens and visitors. Kevin has earned the admiration, affection, and high regard of his fellow employees who are proud to call him friend. The Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners recognizes Kevin's contributions over the past 30 years and expresses its sincere appreciation for his dedication to a job well done. Best wishes are extended to Kevin for his continued success and many more productive years. Remember that, many more productive years in the town. By order of the Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners this 3rd day of December 2014. Kevin, thank you so much.
You didn't remember, we got out of the truck that day, and you said, you know what, it's 30 years.
That's right.
It's cheap.
We have a very special award this morning. This award was presented to our Commissioner, Renee Cahoon, at the NCBIW last month, and this award is named for the late Jack Goldstein from Indian Beach in Carteret County. Jack was a founding director of NCBIW and a leading proponent of tourism in North Carolina. He also served as a town commissioner for Indian Beach. The award goes to Renee in 2014 for her leadership in Nags Head, especially in helping achieve the locally funded beach nourishment project, and for her role as a common sense vice chairman of the North Carolina Coastal Resources Commission. Renee, it's been great working with you, and we have a resolution for you this morning. Whereas M. Renee Cahoon has served the town of Nags Head as mayor from 1991 to 2000, and from 2000 to 2009, and from 2011 as president as a commissioner. While on the Board of Commissioners, she represented the Outer Banks on North Carolina's Coastal Resources Commission for many years. And whereas at the 2014 North Carolina Beach Inlet and Waters Association Annual Conference held November 17th and 18th, 2014, Commissioner Cahoon was honored with the Jack Goldstein Director of the Year Award. And whereas Mr. Goldstein worked closely with the legislators to craft state laws creating occupancy taxes on hotels, motels, condos, and cottage rentals that now fund tourism-related expenditures, including critical beach nourishment projects. And whereas Mr. Goldstein was a founding member of the North Carolina Shore and Beach Preservation Association, now known as NCBIWA. And whereas the Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners hereby recognizes Commissioner Cahoon for receiving this prestigious award for her distinguished and dedicated service to the people of Nags Head and the Outer Banks. And whereas the North Carolina Beach Inlet and Waters Association awards Commissioner Renee Cahoon for her leadership in Nags Head, especially in helping the town's locally funded beach nourishment project a reality, and for her role as the common sense vice chairman of the Coastal Resources Commission. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize Commissioner M. Renee Cahoon's distinguished service with deep gratitude. It is with due respect that the Board of Commissioners honors her for all she has done for the town and for receiving the Jack Goldstein Director of the Year Award. Renee.
Thank you.
So much.
The award goes to the entire town because it was a joint effort by all.
Done.
Thank you.
Outstanding job for us. Thank you so much for your service. We have a resolution this morning that we would like to adopt. This resolution is for the Douglas A. Romali Fire Station 16. Whereas Douglas A. Romali began 30 years of committed service to the Outer Banks community and Nags Head in particular on December 15, 1984. And whereas over those years, he devoted himself to fulfilling the roles of firefighter, fire marshal, fire chief, commissioner, and mayor pro tem. And whereas his career as both a fire official and elected official was marked by exemplary dedication, unselfish contributions, and distinguished leadership in the best interest of the town of Nags Head. And whereas he worked tirelessly to improve the town's economic and cultural development, and whereas the performance of his duties was characterized by excellent and constructive contributions to municipal government and the fire service, and whereas the town of Nags Head gratefully acknowledges and does hereby recognize the invaluable contributions Douglas A. Romali has provided to our community and given his longstanding dedication to the fire service, find it most deserving that his accomplishments be recognized in perpetuity. Now, be it resolved that the town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners, that Nags Head Fire Station 16 be hereafter officially named the Douglas A. Romali Fire Station 16 in honor of his remarkable career and unwavering commitment to the town of Nags Head. We adopted this third day of December 1914. Do we have a motion to pass the resolution?
I so make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. Of course, there being none.
Mayor, if we could get, I think the chief wants to fill in some holes I left out about his
Right.
30, no, actually, I think more importantly, he wants to tell you about the events this Friday for Doug.
Right.
Absolutely. First off, I'd like to just tell you that Debbie Romali was scheduled to be here, but she sends her regrets she was not able to attend. But she will, as well as the rest of the Romali family, be at the Station 16 Douglas A. Romali dedication on Friday, December 5th, 10:30 a.m. at Station 16. Just for the general public, just so you know, 5314 South Croatan Highway. Everyone's invited, and we look forward to celebrating this event formally. And thank you for the resolution in support of this action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Zorich. Next, we have the presentation of the 2014 Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award. Always a great time of the year.
Mr. Mayor, each one of the department heads that nominated their choice for Employee of the Year are going to introduce and tell you a little bit about why they nominated the employee.
Good, thank you.
I'd like to ask Deputy Chief Height if he would join me, please. And Mayor, Board of Commissioners, co-workers, and guests, on behalf of the Human Resources Department and the Administrative Services Department, we would like to nominate Deputy Fire Chief Shane Height for the 2014 Employee of the Year Award. Deputy Chief Height was hired on June 9, 2003, and he was promoted to the position of Fire Captain on November 15, 2005. Since that time, he has proven to be an outstanding firefighter and was promoted to the Deputy Fire Chief position on August 12th of 2013. Deputy Chief Height was instrumental in revamping the town's safety program, and this was accomplished through several years of training efforts, policy development, incident-accident investigations, educational programs, safety meetings, promoting overall safety throughout the town, in coordination with all of the town employees and staff. Because of his attention to safety, we were able to attain the Municipal Sharp Award in 2014. Deputy Chief Height represents the Nags Head Fire Department in a professional manner and is an asset to the department as well as the town. He's always willing to lend a helping hand where needed, whether it's in the fire department, helping with an employee event, or reaching out to others in the community. When we heard the news of Doug Romali's death, Deputy Chief Height was there to assist Mrs. Romali through each moment of the process, as well as the family. He organized the gathering of multiple fire departments, guest speakers, worked with the funeral home and the family and friends and coworkers to organize the memorial service for Doug. He handled many details during this time that will never be known by others because he did it gently and he did it unobtrusively. Deputy Chief Height is an exemplary employee, a leader and an example to others, and he is well deserving of the Employee of the Year recognition.
I don't know that there's anything to say about that, but thank you.
There's more. Stay right there. There's
Just stay
more.
where you are.
expect that, huh? What Benita said is all true. Absolutely wonderful. I will say, in addition to all those wonderful comments about Shane and his performance this year, he's a dedicated single parent. He has 3 daughters, and we all know how challenging that can be from time to time. His mom is here, Lynette. Thank you for being here to celebrate this great event. He stays involved in all their activities, and somehow he maintains this great balance of life and work, and I really respect and look up to him for that. Benita, you've covered so much of this good stuff. I'm picking through now. I will say that Shane played a huge role in the selection of our new fire apparatus that we took delivery of in 2013. The Quint apparatus certainly has enhanced our fire response in the town of Nags Head, and he played a pivotal role in coordinating not only that apparatus construction and planning and specifications, but the wet down ceremony that we had that was open to the community that everybody came out and celebrated. During that time, the apparatus, facilities, and staff looked and performed wonderfully. Something else that happened last year was Shane worked collaboratively with the IT department to implement an emergency reporting system that modernized all of our record keeping and reporting here in the town of Nags Head. Basically, what it did was it provided better customer service to fire inspection participation. We have good record keeping for all of our data for fire call responses, and it just does an excellent job and has GPS capability for us to be able to get to calls quickly in the most efficient manner. And Deputy Chief Height was primarily responsible for implementing that. Again, aside from all of his specific job duties, Shane is an all-in kind of guy. His famous statement to me is, "How can I help?" You know, if he sees me struggling with something, he is right there to lend a hand, and so I really appreciate that. You see him at all the town events, all the town parties and picnics, and of course, working with all the departments is a part of what he does so well. Emergencies, disasters, it just doesn't matter. He is very kind and is a friend to all the fire department staff. He shows compassion and genuine interest in the personnel and professional circumstances of each employee. He's respected by everybody. Shane Height is an exceptional employee, and on behalf of the fire department, I am also proud to nominate him for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award.
Congratulations. Thank you so much for all you do for the town. Thank you very much. And I'll ask you to stand right over here while we get the rest of the introductions. Next is Public Works. Val?
Good morning.
Waters.
I'm here today to present Raymond Shoemaker as our nominee for Public Works for the Earl Murray Jr. Award. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Raymond. Raymond was hired in September of 2012 as a water distribution technician. And in the last 2 years, he has obtained the distribution license of License B. He has obtained his commercial driver's license, and he is also a well C apprentice working towards that license. Raymond also is working towards his traffic control supervisor's certification from DOT. He has obtained all of this in these 2 short years. In July of this year, he was promoted to supervisor of the water distribution department. Some of the things that I'd like to tell you about Raymond and why he was nominated for Public Works is you never really get to know anybody until you work beside them. Raymond went off on vacation. He came back on a Sunday evening about 9 o'clock. About 10 o'clock, we had a water break on the beach road. Raymond was called. He said, "I'll be right there," and he came over. Worked tirelessly through the night. And like I said, you never really get to know anybody in their dedication until you stand out there on the beach road and watch them work in about 2 feet of water in 25 degrees. Raymond has done this and many other things through the 2 years that he's worked there to show me that he is a really dedicated person. And I knew that going in when we hired him. Raymond used to work at the Chesapeake Water Plant. Would drive there every day. The thing that really struck me was, he said, "Yeah, I did that." He said, for 4 or 5 months, I had to go to Lake Gaston. And I said, "You drove from Point Harbor to Lake Gaston every day," which, if people who don't know, that's about a 2-hour trip one way. And Raymond did that every day. So some of the other things that Raymond likes to do that I will tell you about: he loves to spend time with his wife, he loves to snow ski, and he loves to fish. If anybody in Public Works needs a hand, Raymond's usually the first one to ask, "What time do you need me there? I will come to your house and give you a hand." We've had one of our other employees who had suffered a heart attack on the job, Todd Workman. Raymond was there, stayed with Todd, made sure he called the ambulance, got the ambulance there, comforted Todd the whole time. I pulled up, he waved me over as this was all going on. And really impressed me how calm, collective he was through the whole operation. Made sure that Todd was loaded up in the ambulance and was taken away. He's stayed in complete contact with Todd, has gone to his house several times to see if Todd needed any hand and anything that needed to be done around his house. So these are just some of the qualities that Raymond has, shown us over the last 2 years, and that's why he is on nomination. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your dedication and all that you do for the town. Thank you.
Thank you very
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners. It's my privilege and honor to be here before you today to present Admin Services nominee for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year, which is Kim Blankenberg. Kim began the year reviewing procedures and workflows of several of the individual positions within the department to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. These included payroll, tax collection, front desk processing of payments, and the town's water rate structure. Changes were implemented for regular balancing of payroll to the 941 reporting, biweekly processing of longevity versus multiple dates within the weeks and months, written automatic payment plans for delinquent taxes, enhanced collection efforts for prior year unpaid taxes, significantly reducing the outstanding amount, separation of payment batches for more efficient multiple entry of payments, and recommendations for changes to the town's water rate structure, among many other things. Each of these changes has made for a more efficient and accountable work product within a department. Before this process could be completed for all of the positions, we began experiencing turnover within a department. We were also in the midst of construction with office renovation went on for 3 months, with people in other departments sharing offices, working amidst the noise, construction activity, all of that for 3 months. With the turnover in the department, at times during the following months, we had as many positions vacant as 4 tax collector, payroll, front desk customer service, and water billing collections. For much of the time, multiple vacancies existed. During that time, Kim stepped up in every one of those vacant positions without any prior training in water billing or collections. She stepped into the position, assumed the responsibilities. All water bills were done on time, cutoffs, new owners processed. We didn't miss a beat. Similarly, as July rolled around and it was time for tax billing and the billing of privilege licenses, even despite the legislative changes with business licenses, all of those were also done on time. We had a higher collection rate than we've had in years. We collected a significant amount of prior year taxes. None of that would have taken place had she not stepped up. There were weeks that she worked 7 days a week in order that all those things were able to be done. While performing all those additional duties, she continued to maintain her normal assigned duties, including year-end, audit, bank reconciliations, visa, travel reporting, and all the myriad other responsibilities she has on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Without her and all her efforts, we would not have been able to do what we were able to do while we were short-staffed for a number of months. So for all of those reasons and many other, Kim Blankenberg is Admin Services nominee for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award.
Unbelievable what you did this year. Thank you.
All right, well, Kelly, can you come to the podium, please? Kelly did not know that I nominated her this year, and actually told me specifically, do not nominate me for this award. Since she has been nominated several times before and has not yet been successful in being the selected person, however, I could not overlook the things that she has done this year. So for that reason, the Planning Department officially nominates Kelly Wyatt for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award for 2014. Kelly has served as the Deputy Director of Planning during one of the most difficult years this department has ever faced. 2 staff left during the spring and summer of 2014. We also had another staff person leave the prior year, leaving 3 vacant positions in our department. Kelly filled in for all these positions, including her own. So basically, she was doing 4 jobs for at least 6 months and 2 or 3 jobs for probably a year. With permitting returning to near pre-recession levels and a board ready to tackle problems and take on new projects, 2014 has been a time when the department's workload significantly increased. Without complaint and with the utmost professionalism, Kelly was indefatigable. She'll understand that. During this period, working nights and weekends, issuing permits, answering questions, completing board packets, conducting research, and keeping the planning department on task. She was nominated to serve on several committees for the town. She's been involved in a number of projects, including Dowdy Park, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the town's pedestrian plan. She served as our representative on the Rural Planning Organization during that time. She was on our Boardwalk Committee, Parking Committee, our Stormwater Ordinance Committee. She helped with the Gallery Row Arts District projects, as well as the town's CRS program. She's invaluable to the department, to the town, and to the community, and is well deserving of this honor. The department respectfully requests that the board sincerely reflect on her dedication during this past year and all that has been asked of her. With deep and thoughtful consideration, the Planning Department is proud to nominate Kelly Wyatt for the 2014 Town of Nags Head Employee of the Year.
Good morning, Mayor, Board. Lisa, if you will come forward. The Police Department nominates Lisa Ward, Office Systems Manager, as his 2014 Employee of the Year, Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award. Lisa has worked for the Police Department since July of 1992. She's been active in many aspects of the department over the course of 22 years. She's a very highly respected member of the town who is tasked with numerous assignments that draw on her education, experience, expertise, professionalism, and above all, a can-do attitude. Lisa is involved in so many aspects of the department on a daily basis, and also of the town. Many of her responsibilities include tasks that take years of training and education to accomplish, let alone excel at, as she does. From budgeting to computer technology to assisting all employees as well as interacting with the public and other departments, she collaborates in a positive manner with everyone on a daily basis. She does this in such a helpful demeanor that it projects positively on this department and the town as a whole. Lisa assists police administration on a daily basis involving budgeting and ordering. She's a terminal agency coordinator for the department involving DCI, a state-run computer system, as well as maintaining many computer systems that are linked with the state and the federal government. She is also tasked with maintaining and ensuring all police computers receive constant software updates that are mandated by both state and federal government. She acts as a liaison with the county and other area law enforcement agency IT personnel in coordinating and maintaining vital computer systems and programs. She also troubleshoots IT problems with all police employees that they encounter on almost a daily basis, and always approaches issues with a positive can-do attitude. She is also very quick to undertake extra tasks that draw on her experience and extensive knowledge with grant writing, budgeting, and police office administration. In closing, I would like to say that Lisa Ward is invaluable to this department and the town of Nags Head as a whole. She is instrumental to the daily operations of all of our team members. She frequently assists the administration, criminal investigations patrol, and other department members within the town in completing tasks and assignments, and it keeps the town operating efficiently. She does many things behind the scenes with a sense of humbleness that to many may mask her important role with the department and the town. She makes significant contributions to the department on a daily basis, and many times is very quick to give the credit to someone else. She constantly gives the extra effort and gives the extra mile to improve our work environment. And I'll say this, Lisa's, I've known Lisa a long time, and she really is. I don't have enough time and enough paper to list all the things that Lisa does on a daily basis. Her and Dee both are sounding boards for anybody that comes into the police department that has a complaint or an issue. They often are the first responders, I would say, to diffuse the situation and find out what the issue is and then forward it to where it needs to be forwarded to. She has an especially difficult task, and as many of you know, her husband is a retired police chief from Kitty Hawk. So she actually had 3 chiefs to work with and please, and well, 3 chiefs have to work with her and please her. But I will say is, again, she's just invaluable to the town. She does everything in just a very quiet, unassuming manner, but she's there constantly late and working on projects, and she has a real deep caring for the town and the way the operations run. And I will add this one final thing. I can always tell when Lisa is getting ready to make a point come across, because she'll frequently look at the chief and I and go, no, 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 no. She starts waving that finger, I know. It's time to back off. But anyway, I do want to thank you, Lisa, and you're a really good person, and you're truly deserving. You have some tough competition, but you're truly deserving of this award.
Great job, well done. You can see standing before you here this morning why Nags Head is such a great town, a great place. Let's give them all a big hand. You can see why the Board of Commissioners had such a tough time this year selecting only one Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award recipient. And this year, that award is presented to Kelly Wyatt. We're gonna.
Congratulations.
We're going to take a 15-minute break now because we have lots of pictures to take there from. I'll ask all award recipients to please come out front now. We've got we want to take some pictures. Board of Commissioners back in session. proceed on to audience response. Anybody that has anything to bring before the board that's not related to a public hearing this morning, please come forward now. I'd ask you to hold your comments to 5 minutes if you could, please.
Yeah, I'm Louis Toth, and I live in Nags. It's hard to follow all those awards. So I want to give you some rare good news about feral cats. The first is Roanoke Island Animal Clinic has a very successful kitten adoption program. It's run by Dr. Burkhart down there. And a lot of the kittens come from feral cats. And last year, Dr. Burkhart said they got 58 kittens adopted. This year, they're probably up over 60 already. And again, many of them are from feral cats. I caught a few of them myself. The second bit of good news about feral cats is that a Miss Roberts who lived on Memorial Drive, she and a neighbor had 36 cats, most of them outside. And with the help of traps from animal control here, got them all fixed. And then she bought a house in Virginia around Lynchburg. And this single woman transported all 36 feral cats to Virginia. So add the numbers up, 60 plus 60 plus 36 is 150 cats that are not outside around here. That's the rare good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much for your comments. Would anybody else like to speak this morning? If not, we'll declare audience response closed. Next item is approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion to approve as amended, seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none, so ordered. Next item is a public hearing on the zoning ordinance text amendment as it relates to setbacks for pools and decks, pool decks. Mr. Lighty, I'll ask you to conduct a public hearing, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we will begin the public hearing to consider a zoning ordinance text amendment that would modify the setbacks applicable to pools and pool surrounds. This ordinance requires pools and pool surrounds to be located a minimum of 5 feet from a rear or side lot line. Pools and pool surrounds could not encroach into the required front yard. This is a legislative matter, and so it's not necessary that anybody be sworn in to present evidence in this matter. But we will begin by receiving the staff's analysis on this proposal presented by Andy Garman.
Just really briefly, this matter is basically a housekeeping item. As the town attorney described, it's simply to clarify what the setbacks are that apply to pools and pool surrounds. Years ago, the town's ordinance required pools and pool surrounds to meet the principal building setbacks, similar to the house. Those rules were relaxed at a later date, around 2006, and since that time, another ordinance has caused some lack of clarity in the ordinance with respect to this, and it is currently unclear as to how these are being treated, and in some cases, pool deck permits have been issued to allow pools to go beyond 5 feet to a side lot line. This ordinance would clarify that, would simply say pools are being treated similar to accessory structures in the rear and side yard. Currently, sheds are required to be at least 5 feet from a rear and side lot line. Pools and pool surrounds would be treated exactly the same as a shed. We think that was the correct interpretation from the historic ordinances, and so that's what we're recommending. The planning board did review this ordinance and agreed with staff that it should be written this way, and voted at their October regular meeting to recommend approval of this ordinance.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Garman?
I don't have any.
None? All right. Thank you very much, Andy. Mr. Cornwell, does the planning board have anything to comment comment on this matter at all? Nothing additional. All right, thank you. Would any member of the public like to comment on this proposed ordinance amendment? If so, this is your opportunity. If not, does the board wish to receive any further information about this before it begins its deliberations? If not, we'll, I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Mayor?
go ahead.
If not, we will conclude the public hearing at this time, and the board may begin its deliberations on this proposed zoning ordinance text amendment.
Any discussion? Not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the zoning ordinance text amendment as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none, so ordered.
Mayor, do we have to adopt a statement of consistency?
I think it's included in the text of the...
Just making sure.
Ordinance, I think it was.
I think it was, but I'm
It's
just,
included in the text. That format satisfies that requirement.
Okay.
thank you very much.
Okay, next is reports and recommendations from the planning board and the planning development director. Mark, how are you doing this morning?
Pretty fine, sir. I was a little bit intimidated when I saw those police cars out there in the parking lot. I said, holy smokes. But it was certainly well-deserved by all of the recipients and certainly the chief as well. 30 years. All I can say is, I asked him, I said, is 30 years in the fire service the same as 30 years in the military? And he said, well, it's probably tougher. And I congratulate him. Mayor, commissioners, good morning. Chairman Murphy asked that I express his apology for not being here this morning. As you may know, his wife recently underwent surgery, and he's assisting her with that recovery. As I expect you're also aware, we had to move our November meeting from Tuesday the 18th to the 20th because of a conflict that staff had with some responsibilities. And as a result of that, we only had 4 members present, but it was still a quorum. We had 4 action items, and we acted on 3 and tabled 1 to our to our next meeting. The first was the consideration of the text amendment application by April Vaughn on behalf of Whalebone Surf Shop to permit multiple principal uses within one commercial building. It is the desire of the Vaughns to offer a food service restaurant use within the current surf retail shop. The current town code only allows the multiple principal uses within one structure under 3 circumstances: office/retail group development, commercial residential mixed development, and within the C3 commercial service district. In all 3 circumstances, approvals are by conditional use only. Staff was very diligent and inquired with other municipalities via the North Carolina Planners listserv, searching for ordinances or experiences with this same kind of issue. They received no responses. What they did receive was from those jurisdictions that answered, hey, let us know how this all turns out because we have similar requests from the building community and so on, and from businesses. During discussion, staff and the planning board members generated a number of questions which require further analysis. Some of the key ones were, to what districts should this amendment apply? Do we limit the number of principal uses in a structure? How do we park those principal uses? And several others that are contained within our board minutes. So as a result, we tabled until December to allow staff to do the research and prepare recommendations. And also, I thought it was important that we have the full board, all 7 members of the board present when we act on this particular item. The second was we considered a text amendment to consider time limits on reconsidering text amendment or map amendment applications. Currently, you have no restriction on how quickly an applicant who has a text amendment denied can reapply. Staff suggested, and the planning board agreed, that the waiting period of 12 months seemed prudent. Other North Carolina jurisdictions have similar ordinances, and the town attorney confirmed that they are common and legally supportable. The planning board unanimously approved a 12-month waiting period, and the draft ordinance is included in your consent agenda. The third item we considered was a zoning ordinance text amendment relating to fishing piers with the commercial residential zoning district. Following legislation which could allow for the sale of Jeanette's Pier to a private entity, this board asked the planning staff to review existing ordinances. The planning board reviewed recommendations at the October meeting, and we weren't quite comfortable with all of the recommendations and asked for an attorney review. At the November meeting, this past meeting, staff presented and the board adopted 4 revisions. Modify the height of the pier house from 60 to 35 feet. Preclude restaurant as a principal use if off-site wastewater treatment facilities are used. Increase parking requirements if the ocean frontage exceeds 150 linear feet. And limit the restaurant size to 1,000 square feet.
My apologies.
That draft ordinance is also in your consent agenda. The next item was a text amendment to the town's parking ordinance. Following our workshop, staff and the subcommittee members reviewed notes and recommended changes / modifications based on your guidance. The subcommittee met, we approved the changes, and we forwarded the same to the full planning board for approval. The table, which accompanies the draft ordinance, which is in your consent agenda, captures those revisions and hopefully makes it easier for the board and the public to identify those revisions. And kudos to staff for putting all of that together, because it was very helpful for the full planning board to follow as we went through those changes. And I would have wanted more fanfare in the adoption, but the planning board approved it unanimously, and we presented it to you. We did have, the meeting minutes, the notes, the chart, all of that's included in your consent agenda today. And we had one final item for discussion, and that deals with the limitations of lot fill and its relationship to the town's freeboard requirement. Currently, our stormwater ordinance limits the amount of fill that can be placed in a special flood hazard area to required base flood elevation. The freeboard ordinance requires buildings to be constructed at 1 foot above BFE. Consequently, a recent practice by contractors is to pour a 12-inch concrete slab, which is an expensive practice when a 4-inch slab is the norm. So the planning board discussed 4 options that would either eliminate or no longer require the use of the 12-inch slab. After discussion, though, we tabled the discussion until our next meeting, primarily for 2 reasons. One, the sponsor, Mr. Worsley, was not available for the discussion and to see the options, and 2, the full board wasn't present. So we felt it prudent to have all 7 members available when we work on this. Do you have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Cornwall? Yes.
Not a question, but I did want to clarify for the audience that the ordinances are not, in the request for a public hearing on those 3 things are in the consent agenda. We're not just slipping them underneath the radar screen. So,
Any other questions for Mr. Cornwall? Not, Mark, thank you very much for an excellent report. Andy, Clean Water Management Trust Fund.
The board discussed a property acquisition during closed session last month for a piece of property on the causeway adjacent to our current kayak launch property. It's a vacant piece of property, was recently offered to the town. The board discussed it and agreed to pursue grant funding to acquire the property. So staff has come back and requesting authorization to apply for a Clean Water Management Trust Fund to acquire the property. Right now, we're envisioning a 50-50 match for that. I think Clean Water Management Trust Fund would allow us to match actually less than that, and we're going to look into that. And we're also going to come back to the board and present what our options are for that. In some cases, it may make our application look better if we offer to match more towards the purchase of the property. The application period for Clean Water Management Trust Fund starts on December 1st, so it's already started, and they're due on February 1st. So we would like authorization to apply. We think it's a good acquisition and would certainly meet their criteria for our water quality improvements and creating riparian buffers.
Any questions for Andy?
Get it in quickly.
Will do.
Okay, we need a motion to give planning authorization to apply for the Water Management Trust Fund.
I'd
Grant.
like to make that.
That's moved. Second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you've got your authorization, Andy.
Thank you.
Next item, you're up also. NCDOT Dare County Comprehensive Transportation Plan.
Last month, the board agreed to open up a public comment period for consideration of the Dare County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Once again, this is an effort coordinated by NCDOT and Dare County and the Rural Planning Organization to develop a plan for the county and the 6 municipalities in Dare County, dealing with transit, highways, bike and ped, and all other modes of transportation. The comment period closed on December 1st. We did not receive any comments other than we did get some comments from Commissioner Ratzenberger. I did find out some information on some of those comments. If we wanted to discuss that, we certainly can. And I can answer any questions that might have come up since we had this discussion last month.
Are there any questions that you have for Andy on the transportation plan? Mr. Ratzenberger, do you want to voice your comments?
I guess, yeah, we could do this back and forth, I guess. And I think y'all have seen these. I'm concerned about the highway map, or at least not concerned, but we need to think about the ramifications of the proposed highway map on what they're going to do on 158. If you go by what's shown in the plan, our 60-foot wide highway becomes at least 71, if not more, if you start adding in the paths and all the freeway on each side of it. It's out to 130 feet.
It's still within the existing right-of-way.
It's within the right-of-way. I make no complaint about that, but I mean, it is 130 feet, and we're going to have to be very diligent about what we do. The CTP says that there may need to be a study, and I would encourage that, but there may be different issues in different towns and even different intersections all the way down the road. So this is going to be very tough, and we need to stay on it.
The one thing that I wanted to mention with regards to that, I know you're very familiar with the appendices and the typical sections they had in the back, and I went back over that information myself, and I remember being on this committee where we drafted these recommendations. And obviously, these recommendations apply to the entire US 158 corridor, which looks very different in certain places than others. Mm-hmm. And I think that was sort of a generalized typical section. And in that chart in the back, it says 4B, which is the typical section, which is the 23-foot wide median. And I talked to the DOT engineer this morning, Kerry Morrow, about that. And I said, you know, with our multi-use path we're building along 158, you know, I think that while the corridor study is really going to refine what it looks like, the typical section would probably be more like 4G or 4F, which is a 17-foot wide median. It has curb and gutter at least on one side of the road. And in the text in the plan, it talks about having a multi-use path on the west side for the length of the corridor and just wide shoulders for bike lanes. And so I think that's really what this plan is looking at. And she said they would be willing to make changes in the table to reflect the 4F or 4G typical section for the Nags Head section if we wanted them to do that. And that wouldn't be a problem to do beyond this resolution. So, I think that the 4F or 4G typical section is still going to be a generalization with regards to what initially would be or eventually would be recommended, but it'd be closer than what they've got in there now.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I don't think we need to do much. I mean, go ahead.
Commissioner Cahoon, you have a question?
Not a question. Mine's more of a comment, little historical perspective perhaps, that this plan is a vast improvement over what DOT wanted. At least they acknowledge that the need for a median. It'd be a great place to put stormwater, by the way, and do away with some of the suicide lane that we have. But DOT at one point was pushing for a 6-lane traffic bypass. So this plan actually is much better. It's taken into account Nags Head's comments in the past, which just as Nags Head has always opposed the 6-lane bypass, but wanted more of a pedestrian-friendly and aesthetically friendly bypass, which was the median with landscaping, and like I say, reiterate again, stormwater, but anything that does away with the 6 lanes of traffic is a much better plan than what we've seen from DOT in the past.
And that's fine. I'm not actually suggesting we change this. Just be alert to what's in there because it will go through a number of, and like it says, in the lead into this thing, this is a physically unconstrained concept for a broad range of improvements over a planning period, and there's no money attached. So we know what that means. It's just there.
Not in our lifetime.
And I won't go any further. The only concern I have, I guess, in any of these is that, once something starts, if DOT starts getting more right-of-ways, once those right-of-ways happen, then people start losing property, and it's then committed to the right-of-way, and if nothing ever happens, it's still part of a right-of-way, and they can't dispose of that property, alter it, or anything else. And we see that happening out west quite a bit with pipelines, roads, things like that are never finished. So we always want to be careful. The other one was the ferry. Map inset B, they apparently have 2 parking rides. One down by the Park Service shack or facility at Whalebone Junction. That's fine, I guess. But the other parking ride appears to be planted on the sound side of the Outer Banks events site for a private ferry to Manteo. And I have no idea if the Tourism Bureau has ever looked at that or thought about it or anything else.
That item has been in discussion for years. It's been thrown out there as a way to connect, Nags Head to Manteo to go back and forth and
Get people to the event site also.
Probably the reality of that ever happening is
So by
probably
concept,
slim.
okay.
I'm just saying,
Don't
that's an expensive endeavor.
Don't think you'll ever get a permit for that.
Okay, so that's fine. I just brought it up. The last one that I do specifically think we ought to consider carefully is the bicycle map D and pedestrian map D. And again, part of these are a little confusing. They have a path, a multi-use path coming out of KDH down along Fresh Pond, hooking into Lark Street,
Right.
and then cutting around Satterfield, which puts that path right through the middle of our C3 district. That's not in our bike and ped plan, our town plan at all. And I don't know if we want to ask that this be pulled from the,
I think that was probably a modification that was put in because I went through these and met when the group was in Manio back early on in the study last spring. And we were looking at a path along the Wellfield Road. I think they probably dropped the Wellfield Road part of it and just left that part in and used that loop to get back to the multi-use path.
This was supposed to tie in with improvements Kill Devil Hills has been making along their west side. They've been improving a multi-use path along the entire west side in Kill Devil Hills. And in order to get it back out to 158, you would come down, I'm not sure what the name of the street is that connects up to Lark, but then you would connect into Lark down that street. And then I think our pedestrian plan has a sidewalk on Satterfield from Lark to 158. It does not have anything shown on the Lark Street section, but this would be designed to create a more of a regional multi-use path system to Kill Devil Hills, I think was the intent of this.
And you've also have the soccer field park back on Satterfield that this would be a good connection to, back to the multi-use path.
I understand that. It's a C3 district.
Right.
Cement trucks,
But we've got a nice,
heavy trucks.
but we've got a nice park in that area.
I understand that. I just, if we want to let it go, that's, and, so that's up to y'all. I'm just merely bringing it up. The last thing was that they've got a walkway coming out of KDH, comes down Wrightsville, and they apparently are running it as far as Bonnet, but our bike path our plan runs it down all the way to Bainbridge and then up to 12, and I don't know if we want to ask them to expand that one to match or not.
That's correct. I mean, our plan does show it go to Bainbridge, and I think that was to provide a connection all the way to Nags Head Pier. And their plan did not show that.
Should we ask them to modify the plan so that the two plans agree?
We could. I would have to check with Carrie on the logistics of doing that. I think from her perspective, this is somewhat of a logistics nightmare. She's got to get all 6 towns and the county to adopt resolutions for this thing. And I mean, so I would just have to check with her.
We can submit that as a comment anyway.
Sure.
Mayor, this is a plan that would be a living document, so it would be reviewed periodically and brought up to date, so any further changes could be made in other iterations of it, perhaps.
We could do that too.
Right.
Thus ends my public comment.
I think we need to submit that as a comment to make sure the plans agree. It's no need of publishing plans that don't agree.
I will do that.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment. I agree with Commissioner Cahoon. This is a vast improvement, particularly in dealing with the bypass. And I'd like to chime in on Commissioner Ratzenberger's comment about the width of the bypass potentially expanding. If it goes to that maximum width, one of the things that came out of the review of the legislative advocacy goals is the fact that if DOT has an approved project and it affects the utilities, then the municipality has some fiscal responsibility for relocation of utilities. And that could be pretty significant if we go to the extreme on this. So again, just something to keep an eye on for the future.
We'll talk about that on the next item. I've got that listed as a number 1 goal. Any other comments? Okay, we need a motion to we need a motion to approve the NC Dare County Comprehensive Transportation Plans with the comments that we've Is there any discussion on that?
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution for the comprehensive transportation plan.
Second.
Okay, made and seconded. Any discussion? Did that motion include with the comments?
Yes, it did.
Okay, with the comments.
With that single comment,
All right.
I think was or all of them,
All right. Well, with the two comments.
the two comments.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
And Andy, you have the resolution.
All right, great.
Now, under new business, first item is under committee reports. We have an appointment to make to the Outer Banks Seafood Festival Board. This would be the Nags head representative to the Seafood Board. Do we have a nomination for that appointment? Webb Fuller is currently our representative, and he has agreed to continue to serve. Are there other nominations? If not, move that nominations be closed.
Second?
Seconded. All in favor of appointing Webb Fuller as our representative to the Outer Banks Seafood Festival Board, continue, that will be a 2-year appointment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, and there being none, it's so ordered. Mayor Pro Tem Walters, you have an update on the tourism site contract award and update on the Dowdy Park process.
Yeah, the contract was awarded to Barnhill, and if you've ridden by the event site, you'll see that there's already some equipment out there and some work has begun. It's expected to run through the end of March, with it being mostly complete by that time with a punch list to follow. So we can look forward to some really exciting changes on that site. So it should be in much better condition or more user-friendly by the spring season.
Good,
So.
great, good news.
And then also, just a couple of, if I may, give you just a few highlights from the Visitors Bureau at this time?
Yes,
Is that
please.
good? Okay. Just some highlights of the recent North Carolina Tourism Leadership Conference. The Outer Banks Visitor Bureau won the Platinum Award for Destination Marketing Initiatives in the web-based category, and for the video campaign promoting Cape Hatteras as a top 10 U.S. beach destination. And they also won a Platinum Award for Destination Marketing Initiatives, the social media campaign for the commemorative sticker campaign celebrating the Facebook audience reaching 500,000 members. So, and just as an FYI, North Carolina is the #6 most visited state in the country. And in 2013, Dare County's tourism-related expenditures surpassed $953 million, supporting more than 11,750 jobs locally. So that's pretty impressive. Additionally, the occupancy and meals receipts through September are up 4.37% for the county, which is really good. And in Nags Head, the occupancy is up 5.52% through September, and the meals are up 9.37%. So townwide, we're doing better than the average. So that's really good to know that our local businesses are hopefully doing well and had a good season. Also, there is a new Outer Banks travel guide, which has been completely redone this year. It's a little different than in the past. There are lots of photos, but it's not divided up into communities anymore. It's a lot more user-friendly. Hotels, all hotels and motels are together, listing their amenities, the bed and breakfast, the campgrounds, the rental homes. And there is also the 2015 off-season getaway package, which gives lots of discounts. So that's being sent out to people who request that information.
Also see that on TripAdvisor online. Get a notification of my $99 weekend at the Outer Banks.
Oh, there you go. So that's just some highlights of the Tourist Bureau. Also, some events that are going on now. Winter Lights, if anyone hasn't had the opportunity to do that at the Elizabethan Gardens, is pretty spectacular. Also have the OB Xmas program that's going on. The First Flight Society dinner is coming up, which on the 16th, and there's a luncheon on the 17th. And there's a Festivus road race on Saturday, December 20th. So just want to make you aware of those
Busy
upcoming
December.
events. Yeah, a busy December. And the next item is the Dowdy Park. And Andy or Kelly, please chime in. We had our second really public forum to gather community input. I think we had maybe 30 to 40 attendees. Lots of good comments, lots of items to think about for what we can incorporate on the site and also what we can't incorporate on the site. The overarching theme, I think, from all of those comments were pretty much in line with the survey that we have so far, all the survey results, which I think we have over 750 at this point, which I think is pretty remarkable. The following day, which I believe was November 21st, the committee had a design charrette with with VHB and John DeLucia here. And that was very productive as far as getting some things on paper, some initial concepts, and we'll be receiving more info on that later this month with the hopes of bringing the information to another public forum or workshop where the community can come in. They'll actually have something to look at, some options, and then followed by a board meeting to get board input as well. So, that's it. Andy, anything you want to add to that process?
Just a few notes. We discussed actually having 3 concepts coming forward for everyone to review, and then this meeting that would probably happen potentially in January would be a board workshop where the public would be invited, and it would sort of be an open house where the board could look at the concepts with the public and sort of get feedback directly. And then that input could be taken later to a regular board meeting where the board could flesh out what they heard and what their preferences are, or what its preferences are. So that's looking like the January, February timeframe is when we would be ready to do that. Other than that, we are going to be posting the public presentation we gave for that meeting on our website, where you'll be able to see all the survey results. And we actually have all the other comments listed as well. If anybody's interested in seeing all the other responses, that'll be on there. And if anyone's interested, we gave the committee a homework assignment for the design charrette, which turned out to be very interesting. We are probably not going to post that on the website, but if anyone would like it sent to them, it's pretty interesting. The committee was given an assignment to basically, the question they were asked is, what are the components of a great park or public space? And then they were asked to find at least 5 images of inviting, unique, interesting parks, public spaces, or places, and then say why they picked the images. And then we put it all together in a PowerPoint presentation, and each committee member had to get up during the charrette and explain why they picked these items. And it turned out to be fairly interesting, and the designers took that information, and that's going to help them develop some of the concepts. And one of the things that Susie mentioned, it seems like the art theme is a really big theme with the park. And so there's a lot of interest in that to incorporate art into the components of the park. So just so you're aware.
Could I ask a couple questions? Andy, I'd like to follow up just a little bit. I think this group has been doing a superb job in promoting public awareness of the park, and I know people out there in the community are really excited about it. The Pumpkin Fair thing, I think, was a great event. And I was not available to attend the public meeting, and I wish I could have been there just to not only participate, but to observe the public input and everything. I just had a couple of questions, which maybe you could shed some light on or get back to me later on. Number one, is the way that it's developing pretty much reinforcing what was laid out in the Parks and Rec plan as far as a sector that would apply to a park like this? And number two, are the senior citizens finding opportunities or means to provide their input so that they're included in the different options for the development of the park? And I ask that specifically from a personal area of interest because I worked on the senior citizen part of the Parks and Rec plan, so I'm really interested in that.
Right. The first question, I think I would have to go back and do a little research into the Parks and Rec plan to sort of get a sense of how this applies to that. The second question, I feel like we've gotten a lot of responses from that group, and certainly we did break out our survey results for age ranges, and we have them broken down that way, and we'll send that to you so you can take a look at it. And I think we did talk about specific design components that would benefit those age groups. A lot of the amenities would benefit all age groups, like a performance venue or just a place to come and see events or activities like farmers market, live music events, social gatherings. Those things I think would really apply to all ages. But other things like I know bocce was one thing. The community garden is another thing. Chess, an area to play chess, an outdoor library. There's all kinds of different ideas that were floated out there that I think would apply to those ages, and we can drill down into that with a lot of the other comments we received. But I think the committee is trying to address that, I feel. Susie, maybe you want to...
We had a significant number of respondents in the age group, which I believe is, I can't remember if it's 60 and older or 65 and older. And it's really interesting that as you look across the age groups, once you see the survey data, that group has the same interest as the younger family group because they want to take their grandchildren to parks. So I think we have a broad base, and I think that the concepts that have come forth so far really do appeal to all ages, and that's been the driving mission all along, that everyone is aware that it must be a park for all ages in perpetuity. So that is the driving theme for this park. And in regard to the comprehensive recreation plan, we have taken into consideration what we have at other parks.
Absolutely.
So that it's not reinventing the wheel on a different space or a park nearby. It's more, it provides a greater opportunity, So because we are in an area, or this park will be in an area which kind of lends itself to lots of activity, whether it's, you're near Bonnet Street, you're beside a school, you're across from the YMCA, you're near Town Park, those kind of things. So it's more creating connectivity from park to park to park and opportunities, which I think is the overarching theme of the recreation plan and providing amenities for all ages throughout our community.
I think the interesting thing at the survey data that I looked at was how closely interests were across all age spectrum. That was very, very little variation. A little bit on the bottom end were a few more active activities, but other than that, the interests were pretty well consistent across all the age groups.
Yeah.
It's really sort of turning out to be a more of a passive recreation, community center, green space facility as opposed to dedicated to a specific
and
user
dog park.
Dog park did come up a lot.
A lot of the comments were dog park.
And skate park, and we knew those were coming, and I think that goes back to the comment you made about looking back at our overall plan and what we can provide on this site and what we might be able to provide on the other sites to address these other things that may not fit the best here.
Right, yeah. Overall strategically, what's best, what complements the other areas. And again, I commend the group for what they're doing. Thank you very much for your response.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I want to commend the group, Mayor Pro Tem Walters and the entire group for the tremendous action that you've had so far and the public involvement. I think we're going to end up with an excellent park because of that. Any other comments? You have anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
Sounds good to me.
Next is a discussion of the North Carolina League of Municipalities Legislative Action Committee proposed goals for 2015. I sent you a copy of those. Are there any comments on those?
I had a comment, and I'm not sure exactly how at the conference our input will be received, whether we're voting for what we think are the best 25 out of the proposed 41 goals or whatever, but I did go through the list of 41 plus the other categories and identified some that I felt we should strongly support and some that I thought we should not support. So I have that input to submit, if that's the form that it should take, or
Yes,
if we should have some discussion.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Marvin? I've also done pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
But you go ahead with yours first, the ones that you think we should support.
Well, I came up with, in the area of 18, and probably too much to discuss each one. So if I could just go down and identify the numbers of the ones.
That'll be fine, and we can discuss them if anybody would like to discuss them then.
Okay. Number 5 was on home rule. Number 7 on transportation bonds.
Let me get mark yours. Okay.
Number 8 on the NCDOT projects utility costs. Number 11, control over public assets. Number 12, authority over water and sewer. Number 14, local management of services. Number 16, water supply as a riparian use. Number 19, the opposition of internet sweepstakes. Number 21, I oppose that one based on the potential for violation of property owner rights, or I could support that one if they modified it with a parenthetical statement indicating
You said
the
21.
protection of property owner rights.
You oppose 21.
Yes, as written, number 21, I would oppose. Number 22, aesthetic standards, would support, particularly in regard to the village standards that we have. Number 23, on tree protection, I would support that. Number 28, replacement of the privilege tax. Support that. Number 29, allowing local sales tax. Again, I would support that with a very high priority. I think that could be very helpful for Nags Head. Number 30, on distribution of local sales tax. Again, I could suggest a modification to that if we have the opportunity to do that with some additional details. Number 31, on electronic legal notices, replacing newspaper notices. I disagree with that one. That proposed that across the board, electronic notices could totally replace written notices. So that one I would not support. Number 32, Clean Water Management Trust Fund. support that as a very high priority. Number 34, pensions for employees, strongly support that one. Number 35 was a good one, I think, very timely. Compensation for oil and gas exploration and development damages. Put a very high priority on that one. And number 38, the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grants, strongly support that, particularly as it ties into our Dowdy Park project that we just discussed.
What was your last one, Marvin? I was.
Number 38
38,
on
okay.
Parks and Recreation.
Does anybody have any questions on any of those? Marvin, I'm pretty well in agreement with you, except, let's see, the one, I had the highest priority on number 5. That's gonna be the toughest one for the league to do anything on.
That was on home rule.
Yeah.
I agree, that's very important.
My opinion is we're simply wasting time on that one. It may be very important, but we're also wasting time.
All right. I think we just need to keep that one at the forefront.
Mayor, I would ask that we support number 39. Nags Head has impact fees, but
Yep.
we're one of the few that hasn't. And there's a lot of communities, especially like in Wake County, that have tremendous needs for schools and so forth. And as they're growing, impact fees would provide them a revenue source to build some of those schools.
Yeah, I had that one as a.
That's a real
number
big one.
priority.
And I agree with that one, and I want to back up to, number 29, which I kind of oppose, in the fact that the legislation, every time the legislation grants any kind of a taxing authority downward, they then find a way to cut their own subsidies and their own money spent down here. And so this is 29 is a two-edged sword, and it may be better resolved by impact fees. We have to be very careful of 29, because they've been known to, oh yeah, well, you can do that now, and so we don't have to send you the money ourselves.
Well, I was supporting that because I have so much trouble with the way, with number 30, where we currently distribute our local sales taxes.
Well, that was B. 30B is high on my list. I really didn't care about the others, but B was high to me. Give it like year in the county. If they're going to change our formula, get a year's grace so everybody can adapt to it and see what happens before they react. And there's a way to do that mathematically.
Well, according to the current legislation, there are only 2 ways that it can be done,
Which
Well,
is
I understand.
by population.
by population or by tax rate.
And I will tell you that in this county, if it were by population, Nags Head collects the greatest share of occupancy, sales, food. We would, if it was done by population, the communities that collect the least would get the most. And the best example I can give you is Brunswick County. The city of Leland has less than 1,000 residents, and they get about $9 million out of their occupancy tax. Ocean Isle Beach, that collects most of it, gets about $300,000 because it's done on
Tax rate.
tax rate and population, because Ocean Isle Beach has fewer residents. Leland has a whole lot more residents because they're year-round than the beach communities that are collecting. So anything that bases on population, we really should, lose and oppose, because the collectors of the tax should not be the ones that are subsidizing everybody else.
Well, that's my position.
So-
If you collect the tax, you should get the best part of it.
Well, and I totally agree, but
And I agree with that. And probably my problem was I was reading this whole thing as when we go through our little annual change of when each community changes the formulation.
Tax rate,
And
sir.
that, is that the net of that thing really ought to go into some kind of, that it ought to wait a year before it actually happens, to
Isn't it
give
an
some kind of
18-month
buffer.
lag?
I think it is.
I think it's an 18-month lag, it's not immediately.
No.
I think it's an 18-month, isn't it, Kim? Unless I'm totally have gotten screwed up.
I'm pretty sure they can decide, I think it's in April of every year, it would go into effect July, so it really is a very short, you would already
Okay.
been in your budget process and have your budget for next year, and it could be changed.
Because I know it used to be
Right.
an 18-month lag.
Yeah, no, I.
The 18-month lag is on,
Just dispersing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the one that really needs a fix in this process here, because, anyway.
Yeah,
Thank
my,
you.
my support on the sales, local sales tax was based on our experience with the countywide increase in sales tax, that 1 cent that was on a temporary basis that would have provided a great deal of funding that would have helped out with beach nourishment. And if we could do that locally, again, the sales tax is paid largely by our friendly tourists.
If
and
that had
might help us
been
out a lot.
written where a referendum wouldn't have been allowed, it wouldn't have come into play.
Exactly.
But there's where you have to pay attention to what the legislation says.
That's right.
Right, and all you do is look at education, where they decided to give all the gambling proceeds to education, and then cut education accordingly. So the net for education was a net of zero. That's why I'm scared of these tax things. They say, oh yeah, you can tax for it. And probably the ferry one is a semi-related right now. They're looking bigger than anything to get us to say, yeah, we want to tax the ferries here, so that the legislature can say, yeah, we didn't raise taxes on you people, you did. And that money will not come to us for statewide things. So that's why I'm leery of that one. It's not to say it's all wrong, but it has to be watched.
Makes sense on how to, more sense than we have to do it now on how to pay for the beach nourishment. We'll
Yeah.
let the people that are benefiting from it help pay for it. Only one I disagreed with you on, I think Marvin was 16, and I rated that as I went through, rated them 1, 2, and 3, and I rated that as a 2. And I think everything else was in line with what you said. And then 19. Other than that, we're in agreement on all the rest of them.
I guess when we're going through an exercise such as this, like I went through and circled the ones I support, but if we're going to do a rating system on a grid, that it'd be nice to know that in advance. So, or provide the grid,
Well, why don't
or
you-
tell
yeah.
us if you want a 1, 2, 3 process.
Al, I wanted your input on which ones you'd like for us to support, rather than a rating process. I just did it so I'd know which one I supported,
Okay,
so I could go back and tell which ones I supported.
okay, do you want each of us to go
Yeah,
through?
yeah.
Okay, all right, well, I can support number 2. Is it my turn?
Yep.
Okay. Support legislation authorizing new, fair, transparent, and nonpartisan methods of drawing legislative and congressional districts. I support number 5, seek legislation allowing the people to vote on an amendment to the North Carolina Constitution establishing home rule. I can support number 7, enabling municipalities to access a portion of the proceeds of any statewide transportation bonds. I support number 11, oppose legislation that weakens or removes local control over public assets. I support number 14, support measures which maximize the ability of local governments to provide and manage high-quality services, including utilities and public enterprise, to meet the needs of the community. Number 19, opposing legislation of internet sweepstakes operations. I support number 22, legislation that allows aesthetic-based design standards for residents in and adjacent to existing neighborhoods, which are our architectural standards. I support the tree protection legislation so that nobody comes in and just clear cuts everything. Let's see. I can support number 29, legislation to modernize and enhance the existing local tax system. I actually support using electronic legal public notices. However, I do realize that everybody's not electronic, so we probably need to continue the newspaper. I support the legislation to increase the Clean Water Management Trust Fund appropriations.
What number is it?
Oh, 32, sorry. I support 34. Support legislation which defends the fiscal integrity of the local government employees' retirement system. I support number 35. Seek legislation that establishes a revenue source to compensate municipalities for infrastructure damage caused by oil and gas extraction operations. That would be a pretty big priority for me, actually. I support number 38. Seek legislation to expand grant funding for the development of local recreational facilities. I also support number 39. Legislation to allow municipalities to adopt impact fees. And that's it, unless we
Okay.
get regulatory
Yeah, we'll get those next.
bills also.
All right. Anybody else have any preferences that you'd like to state?
I pretty much agree with the ones that have been endorsed on the board. I'm really a supporter, as I said, of 39, which was the impact fees, and 2 and 5 are two of my top priorities.
2 and 5.
But I endorse all the rest. And the one with, I'd have to go back and look, it was dealt with the sales tax distribution. That's one that causes me great concern as to what, because it said and/or other methods. I want to, when it's that ambiguous, other methods scare me to death. That's usually a hidden agenda in there somewhere.
Exactly. I'm trying to see which one that was.
That was 30.
That is 30, and that one scares me.
Yeah.
I don't
Specifically 30C, which is the,
Well,
Wanders off.
actually 30A does.
yeah.
New distribution formulas.
I'm not opposed to the current one.
I'm not opposed to the current one, but when they talk about new ones, I think you can get blindsided by communities that have lots of residents.
Yeah, I would still like to get it distributed where it's earned.
Point of collection.
I'd like to see it distributed where it's earned.
Yeah.
That's where I'll come back to again.
And stay where it's earned.
Right. All right. Anything else?
No, I'm not going to get into the weeds here. We've got too many of these. But, you know, it struck me, and Cliff and I kind of had this discussion. This is too big. 41 goals mean absolutely nothing will happen if the league can't focus itself down. So maybe they need to carve it in as a suggestion. The league needs to start carving this thing up by.
That's what the meeting next week is all
No,
about.
I mean by territories,
Yeah.
coastal versus mountain versus, Piedmont, or something, and then look at things that are more attuned geographically or size-wise or something to get them down. But even at reducing 41 to 25 to whatever is, how do you fit one size fits all?
Well, it has to, whatever the goal is,
Whatever.
and the legislation is going to
Don't
But
have-
let's-
There's a lot of legislation we have that is county or local
That's local.
approved. I mean, so we need to maybe look at it that way to tailor some
Well, I
of this.
think
Anyway, my
we-
comment only.
We need to go in with what our interests are and promote those, and
Yeah.
I think we have a good list and are in remarkable agreement on it.
And I think we'll find that we have more in common with the mountains than we do in the Piedmont. And sometimes the league pays attention to, as it collects its revenue, to support it to those communities that are really large, that don't have a whole lot in common with either the mountains or the coast. So the mountains and the coast kind of need to have some joint ventures, as we say, to support certain things.
I've seen that in our meetings with the league, that the far western areas and the coastal areas have, their interests are very, very similar.
And they get left out a lot.
Unless they start calling us rich oceanfront landowners out here, then our interests diverge. Anyway, I believe it to you. I'm sure you will do fine in your selection of the goals and presentation of it.
But the regulatory goals, have you had a chance to look at those? If you haven't, we have until the middle of, until Wednesday of next week, or if you want to email input on any of those.
Mr. Mayor, I supported number 3, 5, 6, and 7 under the regulatory.
3, 5, 6. All right. Any other preferences?
Well, mine were, I supported number 1, about nutrient impairment in waters, and number 4.
Okay.
So I think between Marvin and I, we've hit them all.
Left number 2 out. Okay, how about the federal goals?
On the others, regulatory, 7 was the only one that lit me up as,
All right.
as a high one. The others, some other good ones, but 7 was, I thought.
All right.
I thought 1 and 5.
1 and 5, okay.
But they were all important.
Yeah. I think all of those are pretty darn important goals.
Yeah.
That was my problem with them. The federal goals,
Number 1.
number 1 was, that was my top priority.
That's my own.
The same here.
Yep.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay.
Have fun.
I think we've got some direction. Now we need to name a individual that will be our voter. We only get 1 vote on each of these. So we
Mr.
need a
Mayor.
voting delegate to the NCR. We've had, Marvin will be attending, and I will be attending. And Cliff, at one time, you were going to attend. Are you going to be attending next week? All right. You sit on the legislative committee, correct? All right, so you'll be up front.
I make a motion that the mayor be our voting representative.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to be the voting member at the conference next week. Any discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed, like sign, and so ordered. Discussion support of the CRC request for comments on the static line rules. That was quite an attachment that you had to your package. Renee, would you like to give us a little insight on that?
There is a move by some members of the commission to eliminate the static line, and to give you a little bit of history, static lines were developed when communities do beach fill projects. And the current threshold is 300,000 cubic yards. And then communities can come back after a period of years and ask for acceptance to static line if they've demonstrated success in their beach fill projects as well as the financial commitment to keep on doing beach nourishment. Do you want my opinion? I think-
Your explanation and your opinion.
I think the static line provides a valuable tool for development to keep it from creeping oceanward, where I think my main suggestion to the board would be is that the 300,000 cubic yards is probably not a reasonable number. A lot of communities have kept away from going over the 300,000 cubic yards to avoid a static line, but that causes, and most of these are communities that are inlet dredge projects, not beach fill projects. They use the dredge spool for beach fill, but you'll end up spending money to dredge an inlet for 5 years instead of doing one big project. So I think if we really want to make suggestions, that we advocate raising, either doing away with 300,000 cubic yards and making it a higher number, say 1 million or 1.5 million, or make it so many cubic yards per linear foot, which has been discussed. The idea of a development line, that to me becomes a political handball that can be tossed around by any community in any given election, and it can totally change the characteristics of any community by the merely changing of the board. I agree that one size does not fit all, and some communities want a development line. Some communities have static lines. Some communities don't. Some have exceptions. But before we throw the baby out with the bath, I think we need to take a look and get some more input. I know that staff of coastal management has some issues with the proposal as just doing away with the static line and having a development line, because there are a lot of structures out there, somewhere along the line of around 3,000 structures, and that could be impacted by taking this away or just moving the development line. So I just think we're moving really quickly, and we need to have some thought. There's some thought about doing away with the graduated setbacks and letting communities adopt their own graduated setbacks, which I kind of understand some of that, because some communities want to develop with condos and high-rise hotels, and some communities don't. Actually, the graduated setback came about because of Nags Head and a 20, or whatever, that 16-bedroom house in South Nags Head, because at the time, a 5,000 square foot residence was 30 times the erosion rate. A 5,000 square foot business was 60 times the erosion rate. Who cares what the use of it is? It should be the size of the structure. And setbacks are based on ability to move them or not move them as situations occur. So I think letting communities adopt their own graduated setbacks probably would be a good thing. Letting communities adopt what their standards are for beach fill. But before we just say development lines, I think that's really opening a door that will change the entire character of every community based on monetary interest. I'll just throw it out there. It's monetary interest. Sorry. So my suggestion to the
Take up
board
with the
would...
board at any particular time.
Yeah, I mean, I endorse the graduated setbacks and letting communities do those, because we were at NC Byways recently. I'd say the blockade runner where we were is probably a non-conforming structure that Riceville Beach would definitely want to rebuild in case of a catastrophic event. So, I understand that, and they should be allowed to make that determination. But I think just doing away with the static line in order to get bigger beach projects is the wrong approach. The ideal approach would be to take a look at what categorizes a bigger beach fill project. So,
Did I read the presentation right in that the suggestion was that communities could accept either or the static line or the development line?
well, that's out there for some comment, yes.
Okay.
They're asking for comments. But there's a big push
For development line.
for development line. That's why I'm giving you the comments that I'm giving, and I'm giving you my thought process, my opinion, and as well as the discussions that I've heard take place. And there's some talk about letting communities cherry pick which ones they want to do. I'm not sure how staff enforces cherry picking. And I'm not just talking about our local staff, I'm talking about the coastal management staff, and there may be more to it than just that. If communities decide they're going to do away with this, is there a future need for coastal management?
Part of the bigger picture.
I mean, there's been comment, no, we won't allow further oceanward development, but communities set their own development lines, that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah. Well, it's a moving target.
It is.
Right. Do we want to send comments back to the CRC on the static line rules? You all had the presentation, the PowerPoints to look at.
I guess the development line also concerns me in that, you know, when it says it's expected the development line would follow existing development and allow all homes to be built to this alignment. And I think of current issues within our community. Okay, well, there's development where it probably shouldn't be at this point in time. So, in my opinion, or it, you know, so is that the measure of a development line when it impinges on the public safety? You know, and development, while not, development is not a bad thing unless you have someone that comes in, buys a parcel, wants to develop it, perhaps not in a good way, and then they go sell it and got their money gone, and, you know, but they've been able to influence throughout the process, and that worries me. That influence on, you know,
And how do
future
development
boards,
lines
you know.
control public trust?
Yeah, they don't.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. We're not sure the state enforces public trust.
Right, so that's a big concern for me.
But I mean, you know,
And even the diagram, that's a great diagram for Wrightsville Beach, because they have a dual dune system that they've created and had for 50 years. That's not what our beach looks like. So,
Well, the static line is a natural line, a natural boundary. And if we go seaward of that natural boundary, all we're doing is asking for problems. If we establish a development line that was landward of the static line, then that would be something else, but I don't think that's where it's going to be established.
and I'm not anti-development. I think the coast has to develop. I think it already has developed. And I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but I think we need to think about prudent development. And when a static line is set, it's usually based on a vegetation line, but it's a measured line. A vegetation line can move year to year. A static line stays fixed until such time as you ask for a static line exception, and that's based on stability of movement, not yearly variations of movement.
Part of the new report and the beach report, and we've talked about this before, about the next stage of our nourishment is to go ahead and get our dune system to conform to the natural line of the dunes, as is for the stabilization and health of the entire shoreline here and everything, is to use that as a basis for what we want to work to next, not some artificial line, which to me is, even from the sounds of the briefing, it wasn't a line, it was a, this house, that house. I think Susie pointed it out well. But I'm not much with that. The only thing what I really liked was this thing, and there's 2 paragraph 8s in here, but it's the last paragraph 8, which is the graduated setback size limits, residential, commercial, the determination of the local governing body. Thank you. Let us have our beach and everybody else can have their beach. And that's what I liked.
Well, and like I say, it came about with South Nags Head, and everybody decided that the larger the structure, the further it should be set back. But there again, that probably would be better conforming to local communities, but at the time, there was no way to do that locally. This may be the opportune time to accept that.
Okay, what comments do we want to send back then?
Well, I'd like to throw something in there, and that is, my main comment is, based on what I could understand from the presentation, was that I didn't like the idea of development lines, and I was glad to hear explanation of Commissioner Cahoon on that, because the way I understood it was the development line would largely replace the static line. And so then you have 2 situations. Either the development line could be placed eastward of what we know now as the static line, and I don't think we want to encourage any development eastward, any trend in that direction, or the development line would be placed westward of the existing static line, and I don't know that we want to further restrict development that's westward of what we allow right now, because we already have what we feel are reasonable restrictions. So I couldn't see an advantage, and I could see potentially a lot of disadvantages of introducing a development line. So my primary comment, and I know there are side issues here, but my primary comment is opposition to introduction of a development line.
I think what I'm hearing as a board, we oppose the development of the development line, that we would like to continue with the static line. That we support number 4, which is in the portion of it that the development also be required to comply with 30 times annual erosion rate, or do we leave that to local decision?
My concern with that is number 4 starts out with, in addition to the placement of a development line.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why we leave that part out.
Well, may I ask a question? They're waiting for feedback now.
All right.
Is it a possibility they're going to allow each community to do their own thing? Because if we stay with this static line and KDH goes with the development line, that's definitely going to affect.
Going to affect us.
It's going to affect us.
Right.
That is that possibility, yes. That each community could decide their own instead of it being a consistent policy.
That's what this proposal is. You can choose one or the other.
And I think one of the things, and I'll go back again, is that we would encourage that the 300,000 cubic yards of fuel material be raised, which would probably have more support of a static line, if that was agreeable with the board.
So could the possible recommendation be maintain the static line, raise the fill to whatever, $1 million,
yeah.
1.5,
Right.
and make it uniform, not a town-by-town decision. Keep it like it is, basically.
Except maybe have graduated setbacks adopted by the towns.
Right.
Because that's the,
Based on local conditions, right?
well, that's based on even current development.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would do away with a lot of nonconformities if some towns could go ahead and adopt that. If and I look at the southern beaches more than I do the northern beaches that have allowed condo projects and different things. And there's great concern about those projects being nonconforming based on the change in the setback.
So, Andy, did you get those 3 recommendations?
Yes, yes. And I just wanted to note, Cliff asked me to look into this a little bit, and I contacted DCM's office in Morehead City, and I know that this proposal was, like I guess it was the CRC chair's proposal, and then I guess the staff had their own proposal that they were going to come up with as an alternative to this proposal, and they were finalizing their staff report this morning, and we're going to forward that on to us when it was done. So I can go ahead and forward that to you. That would be the DCM staff's alternative to this, and so maybe if you get a chance to read that, you may want to forward additional comments, and I think that they're going to talk about it on December 17th. So.
Okay.
That staff was put under the gun to get their comments and their concerns on the table. I'll admit that I like to see all sides of a proposal, not just one. And so staff it was asked at our NC Byways meeting to allow staff to at least present their proposals for consideration as well. And like I say, they've been doing a lot of work on weekends and everything else and holidays to try to get, along with everything else that they had to do.
So just expect that to come from us. We'll send it to you.
All right. I think we can forward these comments on based on these reports, and then we'll forward comments to you when we get the staff report. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor and Board.
Well, are we going to then end up also commenting on DCM's part, or is somebody going to put all this together into one?
We'll forward those comments all to Andy.
Okay.
Next item is the items we moved from the consent agenda, which would be E7, the local water supply plan.
Mayor, the Public Works Director, Ralph Brill, can come up and explain some of this. Nancy, she had to leave. She was here, but she has had contact with the local water supply and been able to answer some of the questions that came up. But I'll ask Ralph to kind of give an overview of what this plan is and why it's required.
This plan is required by the state every year, and every 5 years it is brought to the board's attention so they can look over it and basically give their blessing. It used to be done every year, but it got to the point where the state couldn't get them out and get them back within a year. So it goes every 5 years. The formula that is used is the formula that the state provides. So they take the information that we send them, they come up with the formula. Talking to them last night, they have 600 water plants online, and municipalities that send this in. They only have about 20 that are on the coast. So they really don't do it for seasonal. If we would like to, we could send a seasonal number in, and they would just add it to the notes. But basically, they take this plan, and when we submit for new water lines and things, they look at this plan, seeing how much of water that we have available and for development and things, and then this is just one part of the tool they use to approve the water lines that get put in.
It's probably another example of one size doesn't fit all, but it's close. 580 towns it fit, and the 20 coastal it left out. But Ralph, do you have some seasonal?
We don't. we didn't get them yet. We would have to get what our metered numbers is. What we go on what we sell. We would have to go back and get the metered numbers from our visitors and our year-round residents, and then go ahead and come up with an estimate of how many gallons per day they use, and like I said, we could add them into the notes.
What would be the advantage of us doing that?
I really don't see a great advantage of us doing it, because the number they can't come up with is the amount of water that is being used by everybody on a yearly basis. So really with us being purchasing water, I mean, we use the water we use. If we were, and this is what I told Cliff last night, and after talking to the gentleman at the state, it would be more critical if we were providing water, if we were still making water at a fresh pond, or we had our own wells and things. But basically, we just kind of piggyback on what the county is saying they will be able to provide to the towns.
It almost seems as though, I mean, we are at the mercy of the county, and for them to calculate our usage separate from what the county is providing, it seems to be redundant. It's one and the same.
And they do look at what the county numbers versus our numbers and Kildover Hills' numbers. Because we did, when it came back with these numbers, we did question them, because some of our numbers were higher than the county's. And basically what Commissioner Ratzenberger brought up is the county doesn't have as big as a population, a transient population that comes in the summer than we do. They have a more permanent population, what their numbers reflect. So we did have several of those questions, why their numbers were so much lower than ours, and that's what.
It doesn't spike, in other words, like ours.
No.
Ours does.
No. Like our number is at 230 gallons GMP. Theirs is like 72. So when we seen their numbers, it threw that flag up, and we wanted to know, exactly why Kildover Hills was like at 162. And that was the.
They have more permanent residents than we do.
Yes.
The message is, do not be alarmed, there's plenty of water.
So far.
Wouldn't the county's numbers have been reflected downward compared to how it was a few years ago, since the fact that they put water throughout Roanoke Island and Wanchese?
And it will be. This is the other thing.
I mean, that's going to make it go down, because before they did that, their numbers for Kitty Hawk, Southern Shores, and Duck would have been up, as well as a lot of Hatteras Island.
And the plan you're looking at is the 2012 plan. This is the one they sent back to us. We've already submitted last year's plan, the 2013 plan. They get submitted in April. But this is the 2012 plan. That was the other question. Why did you send us the 2012 plan instead of our 2013 plan? And we were told, well, this is the one that we've only been able to catch up with.
Well, you've got a couple of numbers there, that Ralph, that tell us why we should keep that fund balance high. That 8% of our lines are still transite pipe, which is just a problem waiting to happen.
Yes.
And the same way with cast iron pipe. You can figure that cast iron pipe's been in the ground a pretty good while also.
You're exactly right, Mayor.
Yeah, that's,
Bear, I brought this up, and just 3 points. It's my belief we should always present ourselves in as good a light as we can, and this canned report, one size fits all, doesn't let us do that unless we take the opportunity to make a remark on the bottom that says, hey, we're not really using 230 gallons per day per capita in the town of Nags, because not everybody's smart enough to figure out, to understand what our situation are. There are 20 people. We ought to always make that effort to make a comment in there. Number two, that also makes a comment back to the one-size-fits-all people on the record that says, hey, you need to start figuring out that the world is not uniform like that. And number three, I had kind of hoped that the study we did with the rates would give us a simple number here, not do any more research. We don't need another study or burn up, the time doing it, but I would have thought that out of those spreadsheets there, you probably could have come up with a simple number that says it's more likely to be such and such, and we simply plug it in. We defend ourselves, we take a shot at the one size fits all, and then we move on, so.
Is what your suggestion is maybe we, kind of along the lines of the land use plan, there's the required land use plan, but then there's the practical land use plan, and this is the required water plan, but then here's the realistic as it applies to you all.
And this thing here, right here, gives you this specifically on the back page here. It says, here's your usage, and then it says, somewhere here, it says, can you tell us? And then there's an additional comment space down here. We just make the comment. It's on record. We know it. It's kind of the same comment we make to the local government commission on water rates every time. Thank you. We understand you're concerned about our rates and the income and however, but, so they understand the real world out here. It's okay.
So you're proposing revising the plan with footnotes?
Yeah, put a footnote in there to cover that one. It makes make us look good, make them look, think about it.
And we can do that.
Yeah.
We can send them the number and the footnote, and it will be added to this one.
Yep.
And our 2013.
Yep, and that would be just fine, without doing a lot of extra analysis of any sort. You don't need that.
Okay. What we need to do is pass a resolution approving the local water supply plan. I think you've got a copy of that resolution in your packet. If not, it's under E7, resolution local water supply plan.
Motion to adopt.
The motion to adopt with footnotes?
With the footnotes.
With a footnote.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Go ahead.
Any discussion? All this says is that we will submit this plan dated July 2012 as approved, submitted to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and that we're going to do one at least every 5 years. Okay, any discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
You've got your approval. I'll have to sign a resolution to that effect. Okay, next one is item 8, which was hazard mitigation plan. That was interesting reading last night.
I'm going to ask for Andy's help on this one. There were some comments that both from Commissioners Ratzenberger and Demers about various things, including the stormwater, including some language on the stormwater, which has been included. And there were some other things Commissioner Ratzenberger had suggested, and I believe we've also are able to incorporate those.
Yes, and I wouldn't want to take credit for any of this. The comments were mostly about the progress we've made on stormwater and drainage projects, and apologize for leaving this out initially, but Dave Ryan did step up and provide very good written comments in the plan for that, and those were sent out to everyone, and so you could certainly just reference that if you decide to approve the hazard mitigation plan. But what you were sent last night is the revised copy with Dave Ryan's comments.
Any questions for Andy? Andy, there were a couple of dates, at least, and I can't find them right now. Just have somebody proofread through that. I think they were in the red type, a couple of dates that were probably incorrect, so we probably just need to recheck that before.
Okay.
It was in my note there, maybe that one back in paragraph Roman 8, we've got a date range of 2013 to
Right.
2013, that looks
That
weird.
was one of them, right.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes.
I think there was another one in there somewhere, but I can't find it now.
Okay. Well, we'll check for those.
Okay.
My only comment was that I thought the additions provided on stormwater management that were in the green highlighted portions of the email that we got last night, I thought they were all accurate and appropriate and inclusive, so I was very satisfied with that.
Great.
And that was fine. I guess I'm going to make the same comment I started with. We need to present ourselves in a good light. We need to point out where people aren't. And what I thought was this section 4A, which is basically beach nourishment.
All right.
This is, first off, it appears to have been written back in 2004, and it hasn't changed since then. And there's too much in here. And then we get around to, we barely mention the fact that we did our own project. And at one point, A3, where did that go? This thing is impossible. A2, A3, oh yeah, A3. So in general, we're going to talk about doing a study to determine the financial contribution of the beach. I don't think we need to waste the money we make from the beach on a study, we know that. And then the next thing we do is we address as new information, or as information that the referendum in 2007 failed. That's not part of a plan. Who cares? And very little of this entire beach section reflects the project we did, the largest publicly financed beach nourishment project in the country, minus any federal help, with lots of federal hindrance of 5 years of permitting that we had to go through. And the fact that we're now looking at the next one with the idea of the next step of this whole thing is looking at the dunes and the fencing and the vegetation to get a uniform, stable line. That's all part of this. It's all stuff we're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, I always like to take the little comments about how we're doing this without federal or state help. Give plaudits to the county, but not, And oh, by the way, the state's happy enough to let us renourish their public trust, but won't let us remove the houses from it. That's part of hazard mitigation. And things like that. But I think with that whole section on beach nourishment needs to be brought up to date.
So noted.
This needs to be submitted when?
Well, just to give you a little bit more background, we're in the process of doing the entire update to our hazard mitigation plan, which is now a regional hazard mitigation plan. We're working through that now. This is just the annual update we do for our CRS program, so it's sort of written in an update format. We don't really go back and change the old stuff. We just add some updates to it, and then every 5 years the text should be revamped to do exactly what you're saying, which is reflect all the current things we've been doing. And that's just the way that the annual CRS thing update works. And so we did this for that because we found ourselves behind the 8 ball this year with getting our CRS stuff in, and that's why you're seeing this now. But I think those comments are good, and we will certainly note those for this regional update.
Okay.
Now, this is part of our community rating system, and does this have any effect on our community rating as I think we're class 6 now?
Yes, this is one of the things we get credit for, is having this hazard mitigation plan, floodplain management plan. It's one of the activities, and every year we have to submit a progress report on the implementation of our hazard mitigation plan, floodplain management plan. That's what this is a progress report. So, yes, we're doing this to continue to get credit for that activity. It's one of probably 20 activities we get credit for.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. So this is just an interim update plan, and the format is good for that. Just adding the comments in different color comments as the updates.
That's right, and that's the way it's been done for the last 3 years, since 2010, when the plan was last redone.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions, Van?
I just have one
Pro Tem.
comment. While I understand your contempt for some of the processes we go through and the lack of participation from the state and the federal government, the poke a stick in the eye process is not really constructive. So I think it's just really important that we stay positive. Yes, locally funded, largest beach nourishment project in the country, but I don't think additional comments toward the negative are going to be beneficial to us or anyone else. Chances are, if you poke a stick in the eye, they're going to poke one right back at you. So it's counterproductive, in my opinion.
Commissioner Coe?
Andy, thank you for the work, and thank you for working last night to make those changes and so forth. But I would request that, Mayor, that if we're going to make a whole lot of changes, that the public at least be allowed to see them, while we may get them in email form. I don't think it behooves us to do it in email and then talk about it up here behind the dais, and nobody else in the public knows what we're talking about. We talk about wanting to be transparent and open, but, and this is nothing with you, Andy, but we need to take a deep breath and think, maybe we need to incorporate those changes at a later meeting when everybody's had a chance, including the public, to take a look at them.
Andy, when is this report due into the CRC?
I endorse moving this one forward.
Okay.
Any changes should be put into the comprehensive one.
And we'll draft those up and leave them in draft form until you and the public have seen them.
Yeah, the changes that came in last night were all in stormwater mitigation, right? The green comments.
Right.
So your proposal is to leave the green comments out of this report and submit those later?
And submit those with the comprehensive report. Because you're working already on the comprehensive report. So I would suggest that the changes that came in late go into the comprehensive report, but in the meantime, let staff move forward and submit this in order to get our CRS rating. We don't
want to lose that.
any part of that.
Okay.
Do we lose any value by not having those accomplishments in there, the green comments specifically?
No, they don't, they're not really looking, they're just looking to see that we're making progress. They're not really looking at specific things and saying, oh, you didn't do this, this, or this. It's the CRS thing in some ways is somewhat of a formality. The person who gets these reports, in addition to all the other things we have to provide them, they're getting this from hundreds of communities. So they're not really looking through this that thoroughly at things we have or haven't done. They just want to see that we're making progress and that we're doing the activity. So.
Well, let me offer something a little bit different then. If they're looking for progress and we don't put our accomplishments in there, then they're not seeing it. The public, in fact, if they're looking at this backup package for this meeting, will have seen then the things that David's going to present here in a few minutes, which is what's in the green comments, things that we've done and what our plan is. So they have seen it in that regard. So although they haven't seen these specific words, they've seen the accomplishments. So I think it might behoove us to have those accomplishments in this plan as we go. In this particular case, I would endorse keeping those in there and sending in the best report we can right now, and then enhance it in the complete revision that's coming up. That's an option.
Sure.
The comments that were added specific to stormwater is basically a duplication of some of the presentations I provided to the board in the past. A bulk of that is the drainage year in review that was presented to the board back in July, which basically outlined all of our recent accomplishments. And basically what I did was I presented that in a condensed version. So a lot of this information is really repetitive to what has been presented to the board here recently and also made available to the public.
So it's not policy is what you're saying, it's more of what's been accomplished. It's just factually what we've done from this point back.
What our plans are in the future and what we've accomplished here in the recent past. That's correct.
And you will be reporting on those under stormwater later on the agenda?
That is correct.
Yes, sir. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Any further discussion before somebody is brave enough to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion then that, in recognition of the shortcoming that we did have of not getting all the information out to the public, that a reasonable facsimile of that information is in other parts of the package that is before us today, and that we go ahead and approve this submission of this mitigation report to include the stormwater changes that were provided yesterday to the board, and as I said, and are presented in facsimile form in the presentation that's coming up later today.
Is there a second to that motion?
That's fine.
All right.
That's second.
Motion been made and second. Now discussion.
But I'm at the point now of figuring out, from what I hear, this is another one of these piles of paperwork we're sending forward, and we probably put more eyeballs on it and more concern than anybody that's going to see it after it leaves here. And and thanks to me, and we've wasted a whole bunch of the citizens' time out here even talking about it. So let's get it out of here and work on the getting the CRS under the news. We got an updated CRS system coming in, which means we need to be scrubbing a bunch of things to be sure we keep, maybe even hopefully increase our rating. Let's go to work on the future. We can take these comments as is. So I really don't care if the green stuff goes out or not. Let's get it gone and move on. My comment.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Well, I mean, it's imperative that we move this process along, but I also understand what Commissioner Cahoon was saying, in that, while we received the green comments last night, and they're valid comments, I don't even have them on my screen today because there hasn't been time. It's not timely, so it's not on our website. It's not been presented to the public, and while it may be presented in another form later, it's not where someone can pull it up and read it on the website. So I tend to agree with Commissioner Cahoon on that in an effort to be transparent. Does it drastically change the document? No. It's just the process. So.
Any other comments?
I just think we need to think about the packet that comes out on Friday, quit making so many changes unless we want to add it to another agenda, and quit working staff to death on the night before a board meeting to make sure we've got stuff that nobody else has. And I'm not trying to be recalcitrant, but we want everything on our website. It needs to be in a fashion that the public can get as well. Anyway, that's it.
Any other comments? I'm very much in favor of acting on what we have on our agenda. And I know we've made several changes this month, but we tried to get those out in time for the public to see those. And I'm very much aware that we don't want to do anything that we haven't made public information beforehand. So, got a motion on the floor to adopt the mitigation plan, including the stormwater comments, which were given to us last night. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Nay.
Nay. We have another motion on the floor.
Motion to adopt as presented with the inclusion of the green comments to be included in the updated, more comprehensive plan.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. So ordered, 4-1. We've got several items to go yet. So if it's all agreeable with everybody, I'd like to call a recess for an hour for lunch.
No.
And return, hour and 15 minutes, return at 1:15.
Thank you so much.
So we return at 1:15. Board of Commissioners back in session. Next item is items referred to and presentation from the town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Cahoon on the Inland Waterways Association Director of the Year Award. I think it's a great honor and a real testament to the quality of the town's beach nourishment project. And also, I'd like to thank congratulate Kelly Wyatt for her Employee of the Year Award. That's also well deserved. Other than that, I'd like to confer with the board in closed session regarding the Sansota litigation whenever the board decides to go into closed session this afternoon.
I think, Mr. Lighty, we will defer that until we have a request for closed session under the town manager and also under my agenda.
All right.
What we'll do is move up the Board of Commissioners agendas and then have the closed session there at the end.
That works.
Okay. Commissioner Demers, your update on the stormwater mitigation projects?
Yes, just a brief update. As I think the public is aware, stormwater management is one of our primary priorities within the town. We've briefed it several times at previous commissioner meetings to include an initial program, priorities, and timelines, and to keep up to speed with reality here, facing the shortages of manpower and restrictions of funding. We've updated those plans as we've gone, and we'd like to just present some of the accomplishments and the updated plan. And Mr. Ryan is here to do that for us.
Yes, thank you. Just to briefly give you some recent project updates. First and foremost, the Red Drum Ocean Outfall. The scheduling and moving forward for that project is we have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for next week with DOT, the contractor. I believe Commissioner Demers is going to be in attendance for that to basically lay out that schedule and moving forward with Carolina Marine Structures and the proposed improvements for that. Additionally, I just wanted to pass along the bid that was submitted by the contractor. The approach for this project was a cost share between the town and DOT, and the anticipated price at that time was $500,000 split 50-50 between the town and DOT. The bid came in at right around $408,000, so it was below that threshold. There was also some material that the town was going to contribute to that project. That was, the value of that was approximately $46,000, and that was remainder from the previous work that was conducted on the other outfall extensions that took place in the town. That is probably going to be offset by some of the value of work that DOT has incurred up to this point. And just to give you a background on what some of that work is some preliminary engineering costs, construction plan preparation, surveying, legal representation, engineering permits, admin design. So basically what it looks like is that our share for the material cost is probably going to be offset by DOT's cost for the project design and then construction oversight. So just wanted to update the board on that. Okay. Secondly, we had developed previously a project priority list of stormwater management projects. The second one that we had indicated was South Virginia Dare Trail and some improvements and areas that we saw could be opportunities for localized infiltration and coordinate that work with DOT. During the summer and the various rainfall events, we were able to document those areas where we thought areas that were repetitive areas for flooding and just outline in the process of compiling all that information and forwarding that on to DOT to assist in their effort. They had initially indicated that they were looking to move forward sometime in the spring with a project that was very similar to what took place several years back on 1243. East Gray Eagle Street, that was Powell bill work that was scheduled for last year. That was put off to this year just because of some time constraints. That is basically a roadway widening project, but at the very eastern end of Gray Eagle, there has been historically some ponding within that area. So we wanted to ensure that we incorporated some drainage improvements along with that roadway work. So that is in the process of design. All the survey information was obtained. We're now taking that information, putting that down on paper to generate some construction bid documents for inclusion in this year's PAL bill work. And just recently, the Vista Colony groundwater lowering system. This was a project that took place several years back, and it was a pilot project. So a lot of the measures that were put in place were temporary in nature. So over time, we've taken opportunities to make that more of a permanent system. Earlier this year, we had gone ahead and hard piped that system from the area where it was receiving water to where it was discharging water back in Nags Head Woods behind the Colony Ridge facility. And within the past month or so, our Department of Public Works formalized the discharge end of that into a more permanent means by putting in a drop inlet structure, again, to add permanency to that system. And lastly, wanted to give you some updates about South Nags Head and the drainage improvements scheduled for that area. I know earlier this year at the budget workshop, we had talked about a preliminary schedule for those improvements, and I've got a couple updated tables that reflect that. Now that was broken basically into 4 parts. Phase 4 being the northernmost part, that being in the milepost 18 area, and then the other 3 parts ranging from milepost 18.5 down to milepost 21 on the west side of 1243. The first is the Phase 4 improvements, which in this year's budget we had $10,000 allocated for that work, along with an allocation for survey work. That survey work has been conducted, has been completed, and at this point It's to move forward with the design drawings, permitting with DOT, putting out a bid package, and then going to construction for those improvements. As it's shown in this plan right now, the anticipated project completion for those improvements would be mid-April. The second part is the remainder of the work, and that encompasses the west side ditch, basically starting from Fire Station 21, working its way southward to the southern town limits. And what we will be asking for is a supplemental amount of approximately $16,000 to encompass survey work, which would locate the extent of those ditch, identifying those areas which exist within the public right-of-way, those which exist on private property, doing an evaluation of the existing drainage pipes in place, and developing a priority plan for replacement of those pipes, as well as determining water surface levels and other impediments such as sediment accumulation around the ends of those pipes and any vegetation that may be prohibiting drainage flow within that area. And I will be glad to answer any questions that you may have pertaining to that information.
Dave, in phases 1, 2, and 3, you're asking for approval of to proceed with the survey services, and then next month asking for the money. Is there any reason we can't go and give you the money this month and telescope that contract together by a month?
Let me go ahead and confer with the finance officer on that.
It requires a budget adjustment because it's not budgeted, and that's going to come from appropriated retained earnings. If the board wants to authorize to proceed, I don't see why we can't do it simultaneously.
That's got to come from retained earnings. We don't have that in the stormwater fund.
No, we don't.
No.
Yeah, the red drum is using up all of our current year monies.
Stormwater fund.
All that we
Stormwater
budgeted to
fund.
spend this year was the $125,000 for the outfall and $10,000 from out plus 18 plus some miscellaneous.
So we've got a question, do we take it from fund balance this month, or do we take it from fund balance next month then? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Or we don't do it?
I mean, it's currently not budgeted, so it's going to require a budget adjustment and board approval to proceed. So that's what he's asking for.
Yeah.
But for clarification too, and this is not fund balance from the general fund. This
Stormwater.
is
It's
stormwater
retained
funds
earnings, yes.
from previous.
From previous
That's
years?
correct.
Okay, so it's still coming out of stormwater money?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, I can buy that. So we could do authorize a budget adjustment and let Dave go ahead and telescope this work by a month.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Dave? If that could be done, I'd like to see us do that, so we move this work on forward. And I hate to just sit there and wait to delay the whole work by a month, just waiting, because we've got to wait till the next month's meeting to get the funding available. I'll make the motion that we proceed with the bill, with the approval to proceed with survey services and amend the budget to cover the remaining services with the $15,700 coming from the stormwater fund balance.
Second.
In the discussion. Does that fit all right?
Yes, sir.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. There being none. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Commissioner DeVere, is anything else on stormwater?
No, sir, that's it. Thank you for the acceleration there. Appreciate that.
Other commissioners, anything at this time? Yes, Commissioner Cahoon?
No,
Commissioner
I
Clayton?
do. Roberta, do you have some pictures over there?
I certainly do.
Could you flash them up on the screen, please? Mine is about Saga Construction. We spend an awful lot of money on our multi-use path every year, and this is becoming a house-by-house occurrence of them parking, driving, and equipment on the multi-use path. The police have to be called each time, but in the meantime, I think is there one more, Roberta? No, I'm missing one of where they had their trusses parked on the bike path, and mothers with strollers were actually having to go out into the lane of traffic to get to use the multi-use path. And quite honestly, as many times as the police have paid a visit, how many times do they have to pay before they quit being bad people doing construction in the town? I mean, those pieces of equipment aren't even supposed to be driving on our multi-use path, but there were trusses. Veterans Day weekend, we had a beautiful weekend. They had equipment driving up and down the path with lumber sticking out into the northbound lane of traffic, so cars were having to go around it. People were having to go around it. I'm not sure why we have a multi-use path if somebody is allowed to abuse it to that extent. And I'm not blaming the police because they do answer the calls, they do. And they've counseled with Saga, but I can look at Moongate, I can look at what used to be the C Hotel lots, then it moved to Forest Street, and now it's back to the C Hotel lots. It's every single construction site that people are being exposed to unsafe equipment out there where they can't transverse north and south. And quite honestly, we're spending money in this year's budget to maintain the path, and we end up with things like this on a pathway that is not made to support that type of equipment.
Those pathways certainly aren't designed to support that weight of equipment on them, that's for certain.
And while we all want to help local business, we all want businesses to succeed, this is an abuse of the public dollar. And I'm sorry, I just have had enough of it. I just think they're definitely not being a good corporate citizen to all the people that have paid for this pathway. And I admit this one is right near me, but I have, like I say, observed it at Moongate and Forest Street, which are not near me. And
Well, they're doing the same thing up in my neighborhood now, 6 houses.
well, I understand it can be blamed on subcontractors, it can be blamed on delivery companies, but in the end,
Not the one
there's
doing-
one entity in charge of the project, and that is Saga. So,
Commissioner, I believe there are, if I'm not mistaken, we're able to hold a CO until any damage that's caused to this path by equipment or material until it's fixed.
well,
That's correct.
on that, right where that one, before you get to the porta potty, if anybody can see the crosswalk sign, the sign that says pedestrian crossing, it's been broken off and been laying over in the sand. It was broken off by stuff hitting it, so I just think it's a shame that an amenity that not only do our citizens use, but our visitors use, can't be used in these areas of construction. And I mean, that's a bright sunny day. I think that was Veterans Day weekend, as a matter of fact.
What else can we do to catch their attention?
I was going to ask our attorney, is there anything we can do to make them understand?
There may be some things that can be done. One of the things they're doing is they're trespassing on town property. You know, by occupying it and obstructing it in that fashion. It's one thing to use it, it's another to actually obstruct it. So there's that potential issue. It may also be, there may be some permit conditions about the location of the equipment and staging and so forth that they may not be in compliance with. That would depend on the language of the permit, but that's something that is a possibility.
That's what I was thinking about, a possibility as a permit violation, and we pull the permit until they correct the situation.
And
That's a bigger lever than anything else we
Yeah, they
do.
get shut down for a day.
Right.
They go move their stuff.
or more, I mean,
No more.
finding on the CO afterwards or fine is not doing it. We want the behavior to stop. I think Renee and I sent the same photos in different times on the same day of the same thing going here. And what we don't want is people having to wander around out in the roads because the roads are blocked. We had some difficulties with some of this in the village. And started writing very strong letters and direct phone calls as to what, we simply weren't gonna permit anything else until we got a promise it wasn't gonna happen again. And over a period of time, contractors are now, we're having less and less issues because we're simply not even gonna talk to them until they guarantee it ahead of time. Stop the behavior. And it may not, it may be pushing it, but that's the only way.
Unfortunately, I think part of this is a cost of doing business. The police department has issued citations of $50, but it just seems to not, as you have said, not getting the point across. And if it meets with the board's approval, I can write a letter on behalf of the town too, so I can explaining the next steps that we're forced to take by their inaction from the steps we've taken thus far.
I think that might be a good idea, and those future steps would be suspension of their building permit for at least 7 days. Can we do that?
Probably not. You can probably only suspend it until they come back into compliance with the permit, which may be momentary. But I think you can do it for a day. I mean, you go in that day and wait for them to come in compliance. That's probably the maximum amount of time that you can stop the work.
But you can do it every day, which is why you put them on speed dial.
The $50 isn't.
Yeah, that's
is just
$800,000 house, $50 is rounding.
Exactly. But a day down, a day of time is money, and so
Right, yeah, that's.
a day down is.
And like I say, I don't want all contractors to think I'm coming after them. I'm not. I have not observed this behavior.
Not all contractors do this.
No, I have not observed that from other contractors.
Well, I'm not either. They're the only ones. That, and when they moved the house up across from Red Drum are the only times I've seen it pass blocked like that.
Is it possible to remind them about trespassing at the same time?
Yes. Yes. Potentially including, but not limited to.
Right.
Yeah.
How does this set with the utilities work that's done along these areas on a regular basis, whether it's Charter Cable or the power company, whatever, using exactly the same area? Do they have different rights and privileges?
They do under the terms of their right-of-way easements.
Right.
They have the right to use the area for purposes of maintaining it, but they have the same rights as the town with respect to people who obstruct it too. So in other words, if they need to go in and do work in this area, they have the same problems that the town has, in that there's someone blocking their ability to access their area. That's between them and the contractor, but they do have rights themselves to
From a
use that area.
trespassing point of view, they're separate category. From a use and wear and tear on the multi-use path, et cetera, do they cause the same problem? Do we have an issue with that?
As long as they're working in there, I don't think we can have an issue with that.
They're not working for months at a time in the same spot.
They have.
I'm not arguing the point,
Yeah.
I'm just asking from the legal
Yeah.
point of view,
They
do we have a clean division here?
Yeah, they do have, they have a.
Rights in the easement.
A right to use the area for various reasons, to some extent to the exclusion of the town, but certainly to the exclusion of others. So they're within their rights when they do the same type of thing, as long as it's consistent with maintaining their lines and,
Not just parking equipment there.
yeah. If they just park stuff there to park it there, it'd be a different matter. It'd be different.
Okay, if we're in consensus, then we'll have Town Manager Ogburn write a letter to any contractor that we see violating the multi-use path. And with the indication that we will take additional measures, including shut down of the job. Is everybody in consensus to that? Okay. Commissioner Cahoon, do you have anything else for us
No,
today?
sir, thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Walters, do you have anything today?
No.
Commissioner Ratzenberger?
I was doing some research here, particularly after this morning when we had all these outstanding folks standing up here. And it strikes me that, and we're having the dedication of the fire station Friday, and it strikes me as about the time of year I used to hear market adjustment coming out of this council. And it's an appropriate time to do that. I'd like to propose $100, which could be gift card. I think it's varied from year to year, and I kind of leave that to town managers to sort out. I think it's appropriate, all things considered.
You're right. Commissioner O'Malley would be sitting up here doing the exact same thing, and I would support that.
All right, do we have any discussion? Do we have a motion to that effect?
I think that was my motion, $100. I will call it a market adjustment in honor of Commissioner Morale.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. They're being done.
Thank you on behalf of all the employees.
Anything else? All right.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
I apologize. I just needed to get a couple of things presented to the board. If I get Dave Ryan to come up, there's a couple of things I needed him to brief you on. One is discussion, and Ralph helped with this too, discussions that they've had with Kildover Hills Public Works concerning the improvements to 8th Street, the repaving and widening 8th Street that we've been talking about since I got here and trying to push them along. And it's here. So we need to, I know it's outside of the budget, and we've talked about this every budget year, but we may have an opportunity to get something done.
Several weeks ago, the Public Works Director and myself met with the Town of Kildover Hills Streets Committee. We were contacted by Steve Albright, the Public Services Director over there, about inviting us to the table to sit down and talk about their plans in moving forward for A Street. This has basically been a 8 to 10 year process where we've talked about doing a joint venture with the Town of Kildover Hills to making some improvements along both the east side of A Street and also the west side of A Street. For those of you that aren't familiar with A Street is the northern limits of town. The town boundary is split right down the center line of that roadway. So basically, any improvements that would have to take place, basically we would only be doing one half if we choose to move forward on our own of A Street. And you know, how beneficial would that be in certain areas of A Street where we've seen some degradation within the pavement and also lack of drainage and making some improvements to that effect. So we sat down with this committee to kind of find out what their plans were, and they've got a plan right now to make some drainage improvements along the east side of East A Street, or excuse me, the north side of East A Street. And so we talked about the various options of how a joint venture could work in this process, and basically what was mentioned was, how about the Town of Kildover Hills be responsible for one side and the Town of Nags Head be responsible for the other side of A Street. That may be a lot cleaner. They've got their own engineering and public works department that oversees their design and maintenance, and as we do likewise, and thought that might be the best solution in moving forward. So the Streets Committee voted on moving forward with that, and they're going to present it to their board this coming Monday. So just wanted to make this board aware of the discussions that we had and get any feedback from you to gauge your interest in moving forward with a plan for improvements to both the east side and west side of 8th Street.
What's Kill Devil Hills' plan for drainage improvement on the north side? Just route all the water to the south side?
That's our plan, the other way.
Our side, all right.
They've got a drainage project that they have designed by their town engineer, which goes down Wrightsville and I believe crosses the bypass to the west. And so this would be an opportunity to go ahead and expand on that. We didn't get into the particulars of how the drainage from our side would tie into their side and vice versa. Those are all details that could be worked out on a later date. But just wanted to, one, agree that it's worthwhile to move forward with a joint venture, and then maybe the best solution is to kind of divide it up east and west, where one party would be responsible for all the improvements on one side, and then the other party would be responsible for improvements on the other side of the bypass.
All right, so you're talking split it east and west rather than north and south?
That is correct. And I think it makes more sense. I think what we've seen here recently, especially at the intersection of Wrightsville and 8th Street, is that there's been a lot of patchwork that has been done. We tried to make contact with the town to see if we could do something jointly. It was never able really to work that out. So we patched our side, and within a month after we patched our side, they patched their side. And so it wasn't really a coordinated effort, and it kind of shows on the ground. So.
The street, that street has become a major thoroughfare, major thoroughfare. Something needs to be done. It's because it's you get a lot of truck traffic on the west end of it, and a lot of through traffic on the east end of it. So it's
and hopefully
highly
that
traveled road anymore.
Hopefully the concrete plan will be fully active one day if we ever build a bridge.
And we realize that's one of the key components. Some of the sections right now are only about 18.5 foot wide, which doesn't meet our town street section and doesn't meet their street section also. So there would be a roadway widening component. But since it's only a 50-foot right-of-way in there, we do have some constraints, and especially if we want to add drainage to alleviate some of the existing localized flooding, we have to be cognizant of that. So I think it will be a coordinated effort in moving forward. But again, just wanted to mention this to the board to let you know that discussion has been initiated, and it's also been initiated on their side, and they're going to make a recommendation to their board in moving forward with this joint venture.
Can I ask a question, sir? I'm certainly all in favor of a coordinated effort with Kill Devil Hills to improve 8th Street, no question about it. What do you anticipate would be entailed as far as the right or privilege for us to work on the north side on our half of 8th Street, which would be us working in Kill Devil Hills? Am I understanding this right? That we would be working on both sides, Kill Devil Hills side and Nags Head side?
That is correct.
And they would be doing the same thing on their half?
We haven't worked out all the details, but we did mention that. On the west side of 8th Street, I think they were satisfied with their existing drainage improvements. So our contribution would be limited pretty much to an asphalt overlay. So a majority of the work would take place on the south side, which would include drainage improvements on our side, as well as potential roadway widening on our side.
The DOT a couple of years ago improved the drainage on the west end of 8th Street, particularly there at the intersection of 8th and 158. So that's probably in pretty good shape. So we should get the better end of the deal.
Right, and I'm sure that there will be some type of right-of-way encroachment agreement that will be executed with the town. Anytime that there is private work that takes place in the town right-of-way, they've got an encroachment agreement that needs to be put in place to move forward with that work. And so I'm sure it'll be something similar that we will have with them, identical in nature to any time that we perform work within the NCDOT right-of-way.
What do you need from us today? Just that we've been notified?
Right, that, and just to make sure you're okay with us proceeding. Obviously, we're not asking for expenditure of funds, but just David's time and Ralph's time moving forward with this.
Yeah. I think we've got consensus for that.
Okay.
Calibrate your GPSs and your GISs so that we don't have pipes doing this.
We do have the benefit of some previous work that the town of Nags Head has done along A Street. Dating back, I think, 2008, 2009 range, we did a sidewalk connection on the south side of A Street, so we had some survey data from that. And also, we had some survey data from 2006 for a proposed plan at that time to do a street and drainage improvement project, which really never came to fruition. That will need to be freshened and updated, but we do have some good baseline and reference information moving forward.
Ralph, if I'm not mistaken, you initiated this in '06 when we came up with the plans.
Twice, actually. We did it in '06. We did the plans. We put it in our PAL bill. Worked for that year, only to be told they weren't going to do it. And then 2009, the same thing. I was told, yeah, we're ready to move forward with this, only to be told at the beginning of June was, we've taken that out of our budget. So twice we tried to do this work with them, and twice it failed. And it has come back again to us now, again.
So, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Two other, I wanted to get David to tell you about just update on the sea level rise study that we've been working with CSI. There's a meeting tomorrow. And then I had told you sometime back about Jessica Whitehead, who's with North Carolina Sea Grant. She's been doing some research and studying in our area, has done a presentation that David was a part of, and wanted to get with the board individually. But she's going to be here tomorrow, and so these two things are tying in. So,
yes, several weeks back, the mayor, the town manager, planning director, myself, Nancy White, Robert McClendon from Coastal Studies Institute, as well as Lon Peslar from North Carolina State College of Design, met for a project kickoff meeting to talk about the feasibility in moving forward with a study and assessment of Nags Head, to look at climate change and sea level rise and how that affects Nags Head. So we are scheduled to have a meeting tomorrow between 1 and 3, and basically we've been tasked to go ahead and compile some of the historical reports that have been done for Nags Head. The planning director and myself have sat down and kind of gone over those previous reports that we can provide them to give them some background about Nags Head. That would include the stormwater study that was done back in 2006, the decentralized wastewater study that was done back in 2005, the land use plan, as some examples of some of the information that we can provide them. That is from 1 to 3 tomorrow, so if there's anybody that's interested in attending, we'd be glad to have you, sit in and listen.
Where will that meeting be held?
I believe that's scheduled to be in, I think we're going to do the library again. It's either the library or the conference room. And then, as Cliff had mentioned, several months back, I went down to Beaufort, South Carolina, at the request of Dr. Jessica Whitehead, and she's with North Carolina Sea Grant. They had partnered up with South Carolina Sea Grant to look at a sea level rise study for Beaufort South Carolina, and that is part of a VCAPS system. Now, that acronym stands for Vulnerability and Consequences Adaptation Planning Scenarios. And basically, those are strategies in developing coastal resistance. So she's going to be here Friday for a workshop, and she indicated that she would be in town later tomorrow afternoon, about 3:30 or so, and had indicated that she would like to stop by, talk to the town manager, talk to any members of this board that would be interested in sitting down and having her perform a brief review of that system, areas where they've done that, and just to gauge the interest in the town in moving forward with a study of.
We'll have to coordinate closely is where two or more, three or you are gathered, we may have an issue, so.
I'm interested in all that. I mean, we have to coordinate it, but that ties in with the coastal protection, which is around the edge of what we can do with it. Now, is this the one that's coming tomorrow, late in the afternoon, the VCAS? Is that the one that's speaking at CSI Friday?
No,
No, that's a different something on Friday. Okay.
that is correct. Yeah, those two are separate.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's all getting complicated in there, so.
Yeah, I'd love to go, but we have a GovEd TV meeting tomorrow afternoon. I didn't know this in advance, so.
Yeah, we just found out. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, we might be able to split it up.
Mayor, okay, let's eliminate the traffic jam here. I think we have one.
Well, I'm pretty well tied up tomorrow afternoon, as much as I'd like to see these, so
Okay, so you're not there.
any one of the three can go. Okay.
You going? I'm,
You two can go, but that'd be fine. And if I can somehow get freed up, I'll step in later. No, can't, I step in later.
Once one steps out, you can step in.
okay, so show up at 1 o'clock at the library
All right.
tomorrow. Okay.
Good, okay. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up was at some point I asked the board to consider clarifying the fund balance policy that was adopted by the board in July of 2012. It states that the board will maintain an unreserved, undesignated general fund balance of $5 million or 50% of total expenditures. There can be a large difference between 50% and $5 million. I think the idea is that we don't go below 5, but I just would ask the board to, and I'll forward this fund balance policy for you to think about. At some point, I think it needs to be clarified, because I think presently we're probably just under 50%, but we're in excess of $5 million. So I just want to make sure I understand what your intent is, and so I'll send this to you, and at some point I'd ask you to maybe clarify this and amend it, and even maybe be discussed at the board retreat.
How about sending that to us, and let's place it as a retreat item?
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a question. Wasn't there something that Commissioner Demers came back from a conference with on that same subject? Is that all tied together?
That is tied together, if I might
Yes, please.
intercede here. There are really two things involved. One is the terminology that's in the policy is out of date and doesn't coincide with current generally accepted accounting procedures. And the other is, well, what's the real intent? And that would kind of go back to the earlier budget discussion several years ago, which some of you may have attended, where it was discussed this either or, a $5 million threshold, but also stay above 50%, et cetera. Right now, it's ambiguous in the way that it's written, can be interpreted one way or the other. And I think we ought to just clear that up. Do we want it the way it was originally intended, if we can figure out what that was, or do we want to just set a new, clear threshold or thresholds? So I agree with the approach that, we take a look at that and put it on our retreat agenda, and we take care of it at that time.
Okay. Anything else?
Need a closed session for personnel matter, and I'm done.
Anything else we need to do in open session now? Anybody have anything else? If not, we need to go into, John, I don't know what yours is, but I got the other two. We need to go into, I'll make a motion, we go into closed session, to discuss personnel issues in accordance with GS 143-318-11A6. And that we request for closed session, confer with the town attorney, Ray Colony Ridge, and to preserve attorney-client privilege in accordance with GS 143-318-11A3.
And under the same provision, to confer with the town attorney regarding the sand soda litigation.
Soda case. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and second. In discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 We'll move.
Look at him leaning forward, looking for something to come out of us.
He's ready to go.
Board of Commissioners back in open session. Mr. Lighty, would you report on the closed session, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the board did confer with the town attorney regarding the sand soda case and other potential litigation matters, and also discussed a personnel matter, but no actions were taken.
Okay, thank you. Anything else we need to talk about today?
Mid-month?
We will adjourn until January 7th.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Want to be sure.
Is all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, there being none. We're so adjourned.